Welcome to Draft Utopia, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Ransom, and joining me to talk hockey once again is Ron Mont of R&J Media Network. And today it's the Central Division. Last week we went through the Metropolitan Division. I gave you the first 5 teams. Today you're getting 5 more teams. So you're already getting over half of the field. And let's start with the teams that missed the cut. I think we'll start with Chicago. I think their long-term future is excellent, by the way. They had 10 players, 23 or younger, on their NHL roster last year. I think their long-term future is very good, by the way. It's right now, they are in a very tough spot in their rebuild, and we'll see where they go.
Okay, but so let's look at what they've done.
I think they can win 30 games, but they are a year away from the playoffs. But please continue.
Yeah, but let's look at what they've done recently. Okay, with multiple signings, Lazar and everything else, like you know what I mean, or free agent signings. I'm sorry.
Bedard should get paid soon, but they also extended they extended Donato, I believe. Frank Donato. He had a career season with the Blackhawks at Ryan Donato, not Frank Donato, Ryan Donato. But Ryan Donato had a career season with the Blackhawks. They got him 4 years, $4.5 million per year. Very team-friendly deal that pays him $18 million over the next 4 years.
Frank Nazar is the name I was trying to get to.
Nazar also signed a really good team-friendly deal.
Okay, and Nick Foligno as well. Okay.
Yeah, and they got Burakovsky on a 1-year deal. He's a stopgap, but it's a good stopgap because he played on the first line at times when Colorado won the Cup in 2022. So he has experience for this role. Better on the second or third line, but regardless of where you place him, he has experience. He's a veteran. He'll help these young guys out.
No, I'm with you. And I think that was one of the reasons why he was brought in. Okay, because let's look at what Chicago has done the last 3 years and what they've drafted. Okay, and the amount of players that they have drafted over the last couple of years. They got a lot of young guys on that team right now coming up, and especially with Connor Bedard. They need players around Bedard that are going to take the pressure off of him. Okay, because he's being too focused on. They're focused on too much. And so they've added a great group of guys on the team to help him take that pressure away, you know what I mean, from Bedard. So I think you're going to see a much improved Chicago team this coming season, but I don't think they're making the playoffs just yet because they drafted Anton Frondell this past spring and a couple other greats they got, and I'm with you. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year, but not in the very near future. They're not going to be, they're going to be knocking on the door here in the near future.
Yeah, I think it could be as early as 2026, 2027, and I might be a year early on that projection, but I think it could be as early as next season.
What, Chris? I think that's a really good assessment. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, because when I did my 2027 mock, I tried to project who's going to fall off in this division, and I figured Dallas and Colorado are probably going to stay in the top 2 slots. But if Utah brings up Denoir, we'll get to Utah later, and Chicago keeps developing all this young talent, they're going to be in the driver's seat, especially if they get Gavin McKenna or Keaton Verahoff in next year's draft. But Chicago, I think, is a team that's drafted well, even dating back to 2019. I know Doc didn't go the way they wanted to, but they got Vlasic. They got a top-line defender in the second round with Vlasic. I liked Reichel at the time out of Eisbär in Berlin, but he did not become the player I think the Blackhawks thought he was going to be.
Right.
Comesso's developed nicely. Wyatt Kaiser was a player I was a huge fan of. I know because I think I had a second-round grade on Kaiser, and he fell to the third round. And, the Blackhawks, they got a third-line defenseman with Kaiser, so that's probably their best pick. But just looking at what they did in 2022 and beyond, because those are the picks under Kyle Davidson, Korchinski, I still think Korchinski could be a third-line defenseman on the Blackhawks, but right now he's not on the Blackhawks' top 6.
Right.
And that leads me to believe he's going to be a trade target. If he can't solidified by the end of the season. I would think he's going to be a trade target next offseason. As much as I don't want to say that, I like Korchinski a lot, but with all the talent the Blackhawks have, the fact that there's other guys like Ethan Del Mastro, their 2021 4th-round pick, and Wyatt Kaiser, 2020 3rd-round pick, getting minutes over him, that says something, and not in a good way. Vlasic was a 2019 2nd-round pick, too. But Nazar and Rinzel, the two guys they got after Korchinski, have both blossomed, and the 3 first-round picks look very strong. Moore and Bedard are guys that I really Moore and Bedard were both in my top 10 in 2023. Bedard was number 1 on my board. Oliver Moore was 10th. Moore's listed as a 4th-line winger. I think he could be a 3rd-line player, honestly, if the Blackhawks wanted to put him.
I really like his game too, Chris. He plays a really good – he's going to fit in real nicely with them.
I agree. They got Gajan. He's in NCAA. Martin Misiak's a player I liked. They got him in the 2nd round. Nick Lardis had great chemistry with some of these guys on Hamilton. And I think 2023 looked great. Levshunov already getting some NHL experience. Played on the 1st line near the end of the year. Will start this year on the 2nd line as the right defenseman behind Rinzel. Boisvert, player I really liked. Sasha Boisvert, the Muskegon Lumberjacks center, and Merrick Vanecker, John Mustard, a player you mentioned, all part of the Blackhawks 24 draft. And I really like Nathan Bem. That was my favorite pick from the Blackhawks in this draft cycle. But yes, they have a lot of young talent. Williams here, okay, perfect. But we're talking about the Chicago Blackhawks. William from under the bleachers, welcome in. But yeah, we're talking Central Division. Great.
Nice.
The Chicago Blackhawks, the youngest team in the NHL, all the young talent they have: Spencer Knight, Drew Comessa. Will Connor Bedard break out in year 3? I've been watching the videos Anthony's been posting on Bedard at training camp. He looks like he's poised for a career year. I'm thinking floor 70 points, ceiling 90 points. I don't think he gets 100 yet, Ron, but 100 could be in play next season.
But see, and I think with the addition of who they've been able to get in the offseason is going to really help them and really expand Bedard's range, I think, if you know what I mean. Because I said with what I said earlier, where he was very focused on, you know what I mean? Now that they've got some other guys there around him, he's not going to be necessarily the one focused on all the time. And he's going to have a little bit more room, I think, this coming year. So with that being said, I think, Chris, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to see his production level get higher. Maybe not quite to where, we think it could be, but it's definitely going to be higher.
I agree. And a lot of people, I think McKenna only, I'm not McKenna. I'm thinking of Nate McKinnon when he was with Colorado. He made the playoffs his rookie year, but I think after that, his last playoff appearance was 2015, 2016, and then he didn't make the playoffs again until the Avalanche brought up Cale Makar. So this is going to take time. I mean, I'm not saying the Blackhawks are going to wait another 6. They're going to wait another 6 years, but they might wait another 6 years to win a playoff series. With all the talent that's in the West right now, you still have McKinnon and Makar. You still have Dallas. Utah's knocking on the door. Winnipeg's very good. St. Louis is very good. Well, maybe they'll win a playoff series, but they won't get to the conference finals. I mean, the Central Division's just very tough right now. It's not to say Bedard can't do it. He very easily could if he shows the heart and dedication he's shown. But that division's very tough right now.
I agree with that to a point, because I don't think you're going to see Nashville is going to be there. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily think that the Mammoth are going to be there yet either. You know what I mean? But I
have both those teams on the outside looking in, Ron.
Okay.
I've got.
Do you have them higher or lower?
I have
Chicago?
The Blackhawks at 8th for this season. The team that I have in 7th is Nashville, and I have Nashville in the top 10, but not the top 5. I think they have too much talent to pick in the bottom 5, but I still think they're a bottom 10 team, unfortunately, Ron.
Okay.
Maybe we agree to disagree, and that's fine.
No, that's okay. No, I was just curious as to where you had Chicago. I think they're going to be a tick better.
Yeah. And when I say a tick, I'm saying they move up from maybe 5 to 7 or 8.
Right.
5th worst record to 7th or 8th worst record. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Exactly.
And Nashville, I do like their top 6 a lot. Ryan O'Reilly, Philippe Forsberg, Jonathan Marchessault. He led the Golden Knights in points in his contract year. And then former Lightning captain Steven Stamkos is on the second line. Interesting. Daily Faceoff has Fyodor Svechkov listed as a second-line player. I figured he'd be a third-line guy, given the fact that he's just entering the NHL, 2021 first-round pick for Nashville. But he's listed on the top 6, and Luke Evangelista. If that's the top 6, that's a very good top 6 for Nashville. But the bottom 6 still has question marks. Bunting, Eric Haula, Zachary Leheru, Cole Smith, Michael McCarron, Matthew Wood. It's not a bad bottom 6, but it's also not a great bottom 6. But I think the top 6 for Nashville is very good.
They did add like Nick Hague, right? And they also added the other Nick Prebix as well.
Yeah, they added Hague and Perbix to the third line defense, and they got Justin Barron and Roman Josi on their first line. And Brady Skjed and Blankenberg aren't bad for second line guys. So I do like the defensive depth, and they do have a good goalie, Roman Josi, locked up long term. That's one positive with the Nashville Predators.
And but I got to be honest with you though, I think this might be a hot seat year for
Barry Trotz as general manager or for the head coach.
Either one. With the amount of talent. And still not making the playoffs again. I mean, you said it before. You feel that Nashville is a pretty talented team on paper. Okay.
Last year, I picked them to finish second in the division behind Dallas because I love what they did in free agency.
That didn't equate out to the ice. You know what I mean?
It didn't. It didn't. They got off to a very rough start. And Matthew Wood, I guess, Matthew Wood was the player they drafted in the first round, 15th overall. I believe he's the fourth line right winger. He is. So I'm looking at the Predators, what they did. I think they do have some good players in their prospect pool. Brady Martin, obviously their best player, but I also like Tanner Molendyk, who their defenseman they got in the 2023 draft. I thought Nashville kind of I like the Miguel Marquez pick. That was probably my favorite pick from 2024 because I had Miguel Marquez, I think, in the late first. He fell to them at 87. And then Nashville, they ended up getting all A-plus grades. Nashville and Dallas were the two teams that got all A-plus grades on every pick in the draft. And Nashville, they got Brady Martin, center, Cameron Reed, defenseman, Riker Lee, winger with their first 3 picks in round 1. They got Jacob Rombach, player Prospect Watch alum.
So was Cameron Reed.
35 in round
Cameron
2.
Reed. Cameron Reed was another Prospect Watch alum. He was a guy I was going to mention as well, how they've drafted the last, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Jack Ivan Kovic, the goalie, at 58. Alex Wong, a player that was a top-line guy on the Chicoutimi Saguenay each of the last 2 years as their number 1 defenseman. Daniel Niemanen, a player I had in the second, third round at 163 in the 6th round. So Nashville had a very good 2025 draft, and they got the players they needed to bolster that prospect pool.
So, okay, so then maybe we move the hot seat down a year or two and see what we get with this crop of the last 2 years.
I would say the coach's hot seat is 1 year and the GM's hot seat is 2 years, if that's fair.
But I think we have to start putting this on it, though, now. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Nashville's head coach is on the hot seat right now, but Barry Trotz's seat is warm after this draft. It's not hot yet, but it's warm. It's getting hotter, though.
William, you like it, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
And it makes you wonder who turned up the thermostat in Barry Trotz's office.
Wonder about that one, too.
Yes,
Could
sir.
it be the fact that they missed the playoffs again? I mean, seriously, with the talent and the players that they have on the team right now, and you're still missing the playoffs. Yeah, okay, you drafted really well the last few years now, okay, or since you've had Trotz as your GM, you've drafted pretty well. So okay, I'm willing to kick the can down the road, but if they don't necessarily make the playoffs this year, and I'm not seeing it, I think you're going to
If
have
they
to
get
start.
worse, they have to fire both their GM and head coach. If they do worse than they did last season, they had the third worst record in the league last year behind only San Jose and Chicago were worse than them. So if they do
I
worse than
mean,
that, they got to fire their GM. If they're bottom two, they got to fire both their coach and GM. But if they show enough improvement to where they're not picking in the top five, I'm willing to give Trotz one more year. I think they would have to finish in the 11 through 16 range for both the GM and head coach to be safe, Ron. And you probably agree with me on that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, all day long. Yes, sir.
All right. Next up, it is the Utah Mammoth.
Okay, I got a question for you guys. What was the name you guys really? What was the name you guys really wanted them to be? Like, what was your name that you would hope they would be?
I wanted Yeti, but the trademarking issue showed up.
Okay,
The Mammoth logo does kind of look like a Yeti, though, to be fair.
yeah, it kind of does. And so, William, what do you think? What do you like about?
I definitely like the Yeti. That's a very interesting pick right there for a
Okay,
team. You know, something pretty
yeah,
original.
I'm with you. I actually liked the Blizzard, the Utah Blizzard, because I thought that would be because you got Colorado Avalanche and you know what I mean, and Utah Blizzard. I thought that would be really cool. And I also really like the the Utah Hockey Club.
I was just about to say something like that. What
Yeah,
they like what they
yeah,
were
Yeah,
doing
they went from
with
Arizona
Washington. You know,
Coyotes to Utah Hockey Club to
Utah
Utah
Mammoth.
Mammoth.
Okay,
And before that, before they were the Arizona Coyotes, they were the Phoenix Coyotes. And before they were the Phoenix Coyotes, they were the original Winnipeg Jets. So the original Winnipeg Jets are now the Utah Mammoth
yeah.
30
Oh my
years
god.
later.
Oh my god. Boy, follow that chain, would you? Right? That's a pretty long chain, man. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
okay. So now they've done a really good job as far as
I
drafting.
love their GM, Bill Armstrong. He
Yeah.
was a descendant of Doug Armstrong on the St. Louis Blues. And Doug Armstrong was the assistant GM in Dallas, and he was the main GM in Dallas when Bob
Yeah.
Gainey stepped down. So
Yeah.
he was
They
so he comes from the Bob Gainey GM tree and Doug Armstrong. So Doug Armstrong building his own GM tree under Bob Gainey, so it's like a family tree. But yeah,
it
Bill
is.
Armstrong's done a great job with this team. I mean, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley. They could have tucked Shane Wright. They stuck with Logan Cooley because Cooley probably interviewed better than Wright, because I know most boards had Wright ahead of Cooley that year, but they probably interviewed both guys, and they knew most mocks had them taking Cooley, so they
Okay.
didn't tell Shane Wright. They just went with their gut, and they went with Cooley, and it paid off, and then they got Dylan Guenther, who was number 2 on my board in 2021 behind Owen Power, and they got him at 9, and JJ Paterka from the Buffalo Sabres joins the team. Barrett Haight and Nick Schmaltz are on that second line.
Brandon Tanev now joins too. Yep.
Jack McBain, Alex Kerfoot, Liam O'Brien, Stenlin, and Tanev. I have Utah improving from picking 14th to, because Utah went from 14th to 4th in the NHL mock last year. They went from 14th to 4th. I think they improved from having the 14th best record to having the 15th best record and barely missing the playoffs. So I do have Utah at 6 in this division, ahead of Nashville and Chicago. I think they'll be a playoff team in 26-27, though, because by then you'll have Tisha Ginla and you'll have Danois both on this team in some capacity on the bottom 6. And that'll make Utah a real pain in the butt to play.
And I'm going to say this too. You're going to see Caleb Dionne playing sooner rather than later.
I think he can be. I think he's going to move Barrett. I think Barrett Hayton's going to end up moving down to the bottom six. Cooley's probably going to remain the first line center, but Dene probably going to end up being the second line center at some point.
Like I said, you're going to probably sooner rather than later. Like you might see him later this year, maybe.
Yeah,
depending on what happens.
Yeah, if his team, the Moncton Wildcats, they get eliminated from the QMJHL playoffs, you might see him as soon as that point happens.
Exactly, because this kid's got all the tools, man. He definitely's got all the tools, and I think he's about that point where he's about ready. You know what I mean? You know when you get to a certain player, a certain level of skill and level of detail with the, you can tell when it's their time that they need to make that next step, because they don't have nothing to prove down in the lower leagues. They don't have nothing to prove down in the juniors. They've already done their. I'm not saying that Caleb has done this yet.
And Tisha Ginla might too, because Tisha Ginla's junior hockey league contract expires at the end of this season. He was taken 6th overall in 2024. He might go to the AHL, but it's like
so with the new CBA now that doesn't kick in until next year. Each team allowed to send one player who is of underage to go to the AHL. One player. But doesn't take effect until next year.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's unfortunate, and some of these kids that are like a Caleb Deone or like a Matthew Schaefer or like these kind of guys, you may not necessarily see them right away this year, but you might see them later down the year if their junior teams don't make the playoffs or whatever the case is.
Yep, and John Marino, Sergachev are going to be on the top line. Sean Dursey, Oli Mata on the second line. Ian Cole and Nate Schmidt on the third line. And, goalie was really the issue with Utah and the Coyotes for many years, but Karel Vejmelka finally emerged last year, and they got Vitek Vanasek as the backup.
I think they're going to be improved. They finished 6th last year.
Yeah, I still think they finished 6th, but I was tempted to put them in the playoffs. I had them and Winnipeg. I was debating between them, Winnipeg, and St. Louis and Minnesota. I was debating between those teams, and Utah barely missed the cut, but they ended up 15th in my 2026 NHL mock, so they improved from 14th worst record to 15th worst record. So they improved, but they still missed the playoffs. But I think by 26, 27, they will be top 3 in this division, especially if Tisha Ginla and Day Noir are both full-time players on the roster next season, like I'm projecting.
Okay. I can't disagree with that at all. I mean, I think Utah is definitely going to be one of the up-and-comers, especially out west. The roster they're putting
and
together.
And they got Dmitry Semashev 6th overall in 2023. I wasn't as high on him. I did not have a defenseman in the top 11 of that draft. I had Andrew Crystal, who fell to the second round at 11 that year, and then I think I had Reinbacher at 12 on my board. So I'm thinking, why? There's not a defenseman worth taking in the first 11 picks, but we saw 2 teams take a defenseman earlier than they were supposed to, and I like Tomas Lavoie. That's another player, 89th overall pick from 2024. That's a player to keep an eye on for Utah in the future, and they've got Max Pesnica, and they've also got they've got some players. Simashev's one of them, and they got Daniel Boot, another Russian right winger, in their prospect pool as well.
Yeah.
So they've got some talent. I think they will be a playoff team by 26, 27. I think there's enough talent. And if all the players they get, all those top 6 picks come up, defense, wingers, forwards, centers, if all those guys come up, they could be top 3 with Dallas and Colorado as early as next season with all the young talent they're going to have. It's ridiculous how much young talent Utah's got.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. And they're playing the young talent because, well, they have quite a mix of veteran talent and youth, and their draft picks are going to probably see the ice sooner rather than later just because of the nature of the team. You know what I mean? And then also stocking their cupboards for their, AHL team. That's the other thing that they got to continue to do as well, too, especially with being a new franchise. you got to stock your cupboard. You got to put an AHL team out there. You got to have, guys that you can, take those slots and fill out those rosters. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think we're going to see some of those guys coming in a little sooner rather than later as far as the Utah, but I see them being a little bit better.
I thought about giving Utah the last playoff spot. I ended up giving last year's President's Trophy winner Winnipeg wild card too, but I thought long and hard because initially I was going to put Utah in over Winnipeg, but I was like, no, Winnipeg added Taves. They've got a two-time Vezina winner Hellebuyck. They have too much talent. Even if there's a regression in the power play and they're no longer number one in power play, no longer number one in hits, there's still too much offensive talent and too much elite goaltending in the regular season with Hellebuyck for this team to miss the playoffs entirely. Even if they regress from a President's Trophy winner to a wild card 1 or a wild card 2, even if they regress that much, they're still a wild card team. So I couldn't pull the trigger on Utah. I wanted to, Ron. Believe me, I wanted to. I couldn't do it.
No, I hear you, man. I hear you. Because Utah, they're pretty good team. So,
but I think they will jump Winnipeg in a year from now, but not yet. Not yet. And Scheifele's still there. They lost Ehlers, but they're moving Cole Perfetti from center over to left winger, and they're going to have Taves and Nyquist in the second line. Velarde, Connor, Scheifele remain on the top line. Nino Niederreiter's the third line guy. I follow, and Namstenkov, last year's second line center, get demoted to the third line, and then Morgan Barron, Rasmus Kupari, and Cole Kopke. I really wish they'd bring up Colby Barlow. I had Colby Barlow in my top 15 back in 2023. Yeah. He's had a 30-goal season in each of his OHL seasons. And honestly, I would have, if I was Winnipeg's GM, I would have brought up Barlow last year and I would have traded Ehlers for a defenseman. Because I think if they had done that, they would have taken Dallas to Game 7. I don't think they would have beaten Edmonton, but I think if they had done that, I think Barlow would have exceeded expectations in a Wyatt Johnston type role, and I think they would have taken Dallas to Game 7. And who knows, with home ice, the way that series was going, they may have beaten Dallas in 7 had they done that.
It's possible, but, I think Dallas kind of dropped off a little bit in the playoffs.
Yeah, but we'll get to Dallas later. But Morrissey and Pionk are the only defensemen I like on this team. I mean, Luke Schenn had over 300 hits last year, a career year in hits. Hayden Fleury's a decent third line guy. I don't know how I feel about DeMello or Sandberg. I do think they need upgrades there, but they're drafting too far down in the draft. They did get Sasha Budimir out of Boston U. He'll probably be there by 27 or 28. He won't be there now, but he'll be there by 27 or 28.
Yeah. We're talking about St. Louis now, right? Just
Winnipeg.
Oh, I'm sorry. Winnipeg. Okay. Sorry. Missed you on that one. Okay. Yeah. I mean, clearly the President's Trophy winning team.
If their power play, if they're number one in hits and power play, they could win the President's Trophy again. But on paper, they don't have a great blue line outside of Morrissey and Pionk. And those guys are great in the regular season, but they froze up in the playoffs last year. And that's just
the other thing too. And that's the other thing I think too that's going to affect Winnipeg. You need to get Hellebuyck some help. You need to get him not playing so many games during the regular season because he seriously dropped off in the playoffs because he played so many regular season games, and he never really got that chance to do resting or look. He's a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. You give him just enough games to keep him sharp and keep him on the shelf a couple games, bring in your backup goalie a couple more times. And you know what I mean? Because when it comes playoff time, you need that, Vezina Trophy winning goaltender to backstop your team. And I think that's absolutely what happened with Winnipeg in the playoffs is their goaltending just fell off a cliff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the year they made the conference finals, they started Hellebuyck 64 games.
Nobody does that anymore. No, not since Brodeur.
I agree, and he did have a career year in shutouts, but he's played 60 games or more each of the last 4 seasons. He started 60 or more games.
Nobody's doing that anymore. No teams in the NHL are doing that anymore. Okay, it's a tandem now.
I agree.
Yeah, you gotta do. You can't have him playing that many games because when unless you're a Martin Brodeur and you can play that many games and then go into the playoffs and then just put the team on your back and go win a cup, but we can't. We don't see that from Hellebuck. He's out of gas, and that's kind of what I think the problem was with Winnipeg. And look, it's the President's Trophy curse. Usually, the team that wins the President's Trophy usually never gets to the Stanley Cup. It's only happened, a rarity, a few times. I think 12 times in the history of the Cup. Most recently in 2017, I think. But for the most part, that's what they need to do. They need to get another goaltender in there. Plus the fact that they signed Jonathan Tate, they signed Nyquist, they signed Pearson, they brought in Tanev, they brought in Tanev left, and then Ehlers left, but they signed Gabriel Velarde as well. So I mean, they had a couple moving parts. Is it going to be what they need? I'm more concerned about with what Winnipeg is going to do with their goaltending. That's what has me concerned the most.
I agree, because I'm looking at Jake Ottinger's numbers. He only played over 60 games once, and that was in 22-23. So, and I'm wondering, do you only play him 50 to 58 games? Hellebuck, you only play him 50 to 58 games, and you let Comrie play the other 30, 32 games, because Comrie was actually good in relief of Hellebuck in some of these games last year.
Exactly. And they kind of were leaning a little bit more on him during the playoffs too, because there was a couple times where they, but he needs to play more games. Exactly what you said, Chris. He needs to play more games because Hellebuck needs to only play maybe 50 games. Like I said, you got to find that fine line there with him. You got to play him just enough games to keep him sharp, and then not overplaying so that he's rested. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yep. And Kupari's only a fill-in until team captain Adam Lowry comes back from an injury. I didn't mention anything on Lowry, so I wanted to get that out of the way. And before we get to my next team, the St. Louis Blues, I just want to say something. I want to quote Craig Ludwig of the DLLS Stars podcast. Hellebuck, buck. I'm not going to say the other part. I'm going to try not to cuss on this show, but yeah. It's the Hellebuck, and then it's the catchphrase Ludwig invented.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hear you, man. I hear you. But
pretty funny, but it's like it's kind of corny too.
Oh man. Okay. All right. So who's left?
The Blues, the Wild, the Avalanche, and the Stars. I'm going to save those Avalanche and Stars for the end, but I've got the Blues here. I actually think the Wild are going to finish third, as hard as that is to believe, but I've got the Blues in the wild card 1 spot, improving from last year, going from wild card 2 to wild card 1. And the Blues have a well-rounded team, but they don't have that all-star caliber player that puts them over the top. But they also don't have a team that has any weaknesses. They're very well-rounded. They have quality defensemen on all 4. They have quality defensemen on all 3 lines, quality forwards on all 3 lines, and they have a Stanley Cup winning goalie. So they really don't have any weaknesses. I think Thomas, Snuggerud, Buchnevich is a good first line. Dylan Holloway from Edmonton, Shen and Kyrou, great second line. Jake Neighbors on the third line. They got Pius Suter, I believe, in a trade in the offseason.
Yeah, he signed a 2-year deal. Pius Suter did, along with Nick Bjorkstrand. They both signed 2-year deals.
Yep, Nick Bjorkstrand, Matthew Joseph, Torpachenko. Cam Fowler got cut by the Ducks. The Blues picked him up. He did well with Colton Parenko. Broberg from Edmonton, Justin Falk, really good on the second line. And they also got Logan Malou from Montreal, the Montreal Canadiens 2021 first-round pick that a lot of people criticized at the time when he was drafted. And he's the third-line defenseman with Tyler Tucker. Torrey Krug's injury is considered to be career-ending.
Yeah.
Joel Hofer's done a great job as the backup to Binnington. and I think Hoffer's going to get more games. But yeah, the Blues, I think they're a more complete team on paper than Winnipeg. And they were 1.6 seconds away from eliminating them before Winnipeg tied the game, took that series into overtime, and knocked out the Blues with home ice in Game 7. So,
right. I like the Blues this year too. Man, I really like Schenner as captain for that team. I mean, he's an ex-Philadelphia Flyer guy. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I've just watched his game mature to the point where he's now the captain of the team, and he's definitely gonna, I like him as captain, but he's getting to that point now where he's on the wrong side of 30, getting close to end, you know what I mean? But
yeah, and the Blues struggled for a year, but they did a good job from 2020 to 2024 in the NHL draft reloading. And I remember back in the 90s when the Stars and Avalanche hockey was at its peak, the Blues were that up-and-coming team on the rise with Al McInnes. And, now they won a Stanley Cup in 2019 over Boston as underdogs. It was a great story for the city of St. Louis.
I'll say. But I see them maybe staying where they are.
I mean, you could swap these two teams. You could also argue that Minnesota should be fifth. That's the thing. Once you get past Utah at 6, you can make an argument for Winnipeg, St. Louis, or Minnesota in that 5 spot.
Right.
Those teams are all that interchangeable, in my opinion.
I'm with you. So I don't really know.
I'm putting the Blues at 4 because I think they're a better team on paper than Winnipeg.
Yeah.
But Winnipeg did beat them last year. So that's why I think the criticism is warranted regardless of how you spin it.
Okay, I would still put Winnipeg ahead, though. I would still put Winnipeg ahead, owing to the fact that they do have a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, and
they have Kyle Connors. They have 2 all-star caliber players in Connor, and you can make an argument for Scheifele too. Not a great argument, but you can make a good solid argument for Scheifele based on his leadership, his veteran experience.
Right. So I'm liking where they're going. I like where they're heading, but I'm still putting Winnipeg ahead of St. Louis and Minnesota. Maybe not Colorado. Maybe, I don't know. Probably I'd still put Winnipeg ahead of Colorado even too.
Interesting, because I've got Colorado at 2. You got anything you want to say about St. Louis before we get to the Minnesota Wild, William?
Nah, probably not.
All right, Minnesota Wild. I do have Kirill Kaprizov turned down $16 million a year. Would have made him the highest paid player in the NHL. And honestly, that is a lot of money for a hockey player. And I'm wondering if Kaprizov wants to be traded somewhere else, because you do not turn down that kind of money.
Maybe he doesn't want to play there anymore.
Yeah, he's a UFA next year. 2015 5th-round pick. Minnesota got him in a trade with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I love Kaprizov, man. I think he's an amazing player, but maybe he doesn't want to play there no more.
I mean, he turned down $16 million a year, a contract that would have made him the highest paid NHL player over 8 years. So I don't know what's going on there. Does he want to be traded? Does he want to
the last big contract? Yeah, the last big contract like that was Bobrovsky for Florida. He was offered $10 million a year for 8 years? I think it was.
Yeah,
right?
I think the last big contract a left winger got was the Ilya Kovalchuk contract with the New Jersey Devils. That did not age well.
Right. Okay. And we haven't seen one since that. Right? We saw it for a goaltender, but we haven't seen anything since that. Right? I mean, even some of the, I'm just saying we haven't seen a contract like that. So maybe his time is coming to an end there.
Yeah. I mean, they still have some other good players. Joel Eriksson Ek, a 2015 first-round pick. Marco,
love him.
First-round pick. They got Tarasenko on a 1-year deal from the Red Wings. Matt Boldy, another player they drafted in first round. Holmgren and Yurov were both first-round picks in 22. They're on the third line with Ryan Hartman. And Jakub Trennin's another guy they got in the first round, is the fourth-line right winger with Nico Sturm and Foligno. I think their defense is what's going to be improved. Brock Faber is back.
Yeah.
Jacob Middleton.
Massively help
Faber's
them. That's going to massively help them.
Faber and Middleton are on the top line, but their captain was Jared Spurgeon, and they have not had a healthy Brock Faber and a healthy Jared Spurgeon. And here's the other thing. Zeev William, their 2024 first-round pick, who was very good on the Denver Pioneers, signed his NHL contract. He's going to be on the second line with Spurgeon. Middleton and Faber are going to be on the top line. Spurgeon, Williams on the second line. But Zach Bogosian's on the third line, and 2021 first-round pick Carson Lambos is going to be on that third line behind William. I think the blue line for Minnesota is going to be much stronger this year, and that is my biggest reason for picking them to finish third.
Okay.
But they lost their retirement. They do have their starting goalie is Philippe Gustafsson, but their backup goalie is their other 2021 first-round pick, Jesper Wallstad. Wallstad's been bad in his NHL games. He gave up 7 goals to Dallas in his first start, but that was not a smart decision by the head coach or Bill Guerin to start him on the road against a team like Dallas. That was just a very poor decision.
Well, but maybe it just not worked out in the rotation.
Yeah, that's true. They wanted to get his skates wet, give him that experience he needs.
Boy, talk about throwing somebody in the fire. Holy moly.
And Jonas Broden, their other defenseman's on IR, but when he comes back, he'll be on the third line with Bogosian or Lambos. I think they could probably move Bogosian out of the top 6 and play Broden and Lambos on that third line. And they'd have 3 really good lines.
And I really agree with you, though, on that, Chris. I think their defense and Gustafsson, that's what's going to be the determination here for the Minnesota. I really do.
I think if their defense is as good as advertised, I don't think they just jumped the Blues. I think they jumped Winnipeg, too, and they finished third in this division.
See, that's... man, I don't know, man. I would.
It does come with some risk because
I would still put Winnipeg ahead, though.
That's fair, but I think their ceiling is third in that division, regardless of whether Dallas and Winnipeg are your top 2 or Dallas and Colorado are your top 2.
Yeah,
I think the floor for Minnesota is wild card 2, 5th in this division, and the ceiling is probably third.
Okay. Because it all depends on where Dallas and Colorado.
And if you draw Winnipeg, if Winnipeg's the number 2 team in the division, and you draw them in the first round, you have a chance. But you have a chance.
That's the other thing too. So okay.
I don't know if they'd fare well against Colorado or Dallas. It just depends. Experience says no. History says no. But they took Vegas to 6 games last year, and they were ahead in the series 2-1, and they led Game 4 in the third period. So they had Vegas on the ropes. Even though they lost the series, they had Vegas on the ropes until the Golden Knights rallied in Game 4.
Exactly.
In Minnesota.
And that's not the first time they've played like that, especially like in the playoffs too. In the past couple of years where they've made the playoffs, they played pretty well and had some teams on the ropes. And then, then that team stepped up and, took it to the next level. And I think it was Vegas one year, and I think it was Colorado the other year. But I like Minnesota. But see, and I'm going to buck the trend here, and I'm just going to go out and say it. I think you're going to see Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Minnesota, St. Louis, Chicago, Nashville. That's my list.
What about Utah?
Yeah, Utah. Oh wow, I forgot about Utah. Okay. Okay, I would put you in that mix as well, but I would still put them lower than Winnipeg, and I would still put them lower than Minnesota. And I might put them higher than St. Louis. Yeah, okay, right. Okay, that's where I'd put them too. Okay. So I would just
we've got the same. We both have Chicago at 8. We both have Nashville at 7. We both have Utah at 6. And then it sounds like there's a little bit of a debate between 2 through 5. But
well, that's what makes it fun.
It does. You're right.
We can't agree about everything, right?
Yeah, I agree. There's a little bit of debate.
Right, see, William?
Exactly, William. There's a little bit of debate as to where you'd rank each team 2 through 5. I've got Colorado at 2. I love Colorado's top 3 lines of offense, but I felt like they could have gotten a better fourth line player at center and left winger, and I think that's the weakness of this team. Landeskog, Lehkonen, and Victor Olofsson as your first 3 left wingers is very good. Nate McKinnon, Brock Nelson, Jack Drury as your first 3 centers is very good. Nichushkin, Martin Nikas, Ross Colton, Kivi Ranta, 4 deep at right winger, even after losing Mikko Rantanen. But last year was their best chance to beat Dallas, and they couldn't do it. Best defender was out. 40-goal winger, 40-assist winger, and Jason Robertson was out. Yep. Last year was their best chance to beat Dallas, and they couldn't do it. So I just don't have any confidence against them in Dallas. And Avs fans can say, oh, you lost to Boer. They can talk all the smack they want. But until I see them do it with this core, I can't give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. I look, they missed Gabriel Landeskog almost all of last year until the playoffs.
That's true.
And when he came back, he wasn't exactly, Gabriel Landeskog like we've seen, but he still was productive. He still put up some points. He still scored, blah, blah, blah. He still was able to help the team. And it's always, morale boosting and locker room boosting and all that when your captain comes back for the playoffs. And they missed him throughout the whole year. And they had some key injuries as well throughout the year that what I think stumbled Colorado a little bit. I agree that was one of their best chances to beat Dallas with Robertson out and
Miro out too.
And right, okay. But my concern with Colorado is Wedgwood and Blackwood. Because I'm not so concerned with their defense. I'm not so concerned with their offense. I'm concerned with their goaltending.
What's funny is Blackwood was my number 1 goalie in the 2015 NHL draft. Aiden Hill was my number 2 goalie. I loved Blackwood on the Barrie Colts, and I loved Aiden Hill on the Portland Winterhawks. Those were my top. I was telling people Hill was a dark horse. People weren't listening to me back then because I was a newcomer in the industry, but it's like I love both those goalies, and we'll see what happens with Blackwood because he didn't have the best supporting cast in New Jersey, and his supporting cast in San Jose was awful. This is the best supporting cast Mackenzie Blackwood's ever going to have. So if he can't win with this supporting cast after getting a 5-year extension, I don't know what to say about Blackwood.
We've seen him play. We've seen him play really well with New Jersey in spite of the fact that he didn't have a good supporting cast. Now, he had some injury issues, so that's the other kind of concern, right, with him. But if those 2 guys can put it together for Colorado, I think that's going to be a dangerous team.
I agree, because the defense, Makar is still the best defenseman in the league. You got Devin Taves still on the top line with Makar. They've been on the top line for 5 years now. And then
all they got to do is seal up the goaltending, man. I think they're going to be right back there.
Yeah, Josh Manson and Girard, they have been on the second line this will be their 4th year together on the second line, and it'll be the 5th or 6th year for Taves and Makar on the first line. It'll be the 4th year for Manson and Girard on the second line. And they brought in Brett Burns from San Jose. Right. I thought Burns was Carolina's second best defenseman last year. And instead of him playing a top line role, he's playing a bottom 6 role on the third line, which I think makes Colorado a lot more dangerous.
And they brought in Alex Gagne too, right?
Okay, that's true.
So like I said, I'm not worried about their defense. I'm not worried about their offense. I'm worried about their goaltending.
I'm not as worried about the goaltending as you are, but I think the 4th line forwards, Ivan could probably be upgraded. Parker Kelly might be okay as a 4th line center, but I really think they need one more winger on the bottom 6.
I agree.
Preferably left winger.
I agree, and you know what? And even if they don't get that, I'm still okay. I'm
Yeah.
still okay. You know, because you're gonna have Landeskog back,
Yeah.
right? So that's gonna help you with your leadership. That's gonna help you with
I agree.
face-offs. That's gonna help you with defensive face-offs. You know what I mean? He's gonna slow the game down. You know, because he's that veteran leader. Blah 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 blah. You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I like
And then
Colorado. It's such a toss-up. But if you got a healthy Dallas, I think it's going to come down between Dallas and Colorado for number one spot.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If Dallas is healthy, I think they're still the team to beat.
Agreed.
And
All
that's the
day
thing.
long.
Even if Colorado got the 1 seed, if Dallas is healthier than they are come playoff time, I think the best case scenario for Colorado is they go to 7 games with Dallas. They take the Stars to overtime with home ice, but then Dallas beats them in overtime. And that would be even more crushing than the 2 defeats they suffered to Dallas because they'd have home ice. It's game 7.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Stars
It's
just
never
fired
good to
their
lose
coach. They
game
still
7
beat
at home.
their in the Pepsi Center. So
Yeah. It's never good to lose game 7 at home. Although, you know, Colorado's got a pretty good game 7 record at home.
that's true.
So
But they've lost 7 consecutive game 7s.
I'm with you, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see, because I'm really
We got to get William, you want to say anything about the Avalanche before I get to the Dallas Stars?
Well, yeah, like he's saying, you know, that their goaltending, you know, dude coming back from injury and all that, you know, they need to get that stabilized and then hope and then go out there and hope and pray.
I mean, McKinnon's can get you points at will at center, but Makar was sloppy in last year's playoffs. He was dealing with a wrist injury. He wasn't his normal self on the power play, and that ultimately did cost Colorado the series.
I agree. 100%. I agree 100%.
So he's got to be better.
He'll be healthy though coming in.
He will be healthy. You're right.
Yeah, man.
Final team.
Can you tell I kind of favor Colorado and Dallas? Right? Out of all the teams out west, I think my favorite teams are Dallas and Colorado for out west. I just really like what Colorado has done over the last couple of years. I really like how they've built that team. They won a cup a couple years ago. They've gotten some really good, ultra good talent on the team. And then Dallas. Oh my gosh. Where do we talk about Dallas?
We're going to get to Dallas in a second, but I think there might be 3 teams in the Western Conference that have the offense, defense, and goaltending to get to the Stanley Cup. The 2 teams I'm referring to the last 2 years, Edmonton and Dallas, have dominated the conference. And then the third team's probably Colorado. That's probably
those
are the only teams I could see making a cup run. And I know that sounds subjective, but I mean, the other teams in the conference just aren't as strong, aren't as deep. And
I agree.
That's the thing.
I agree. Even better than Winnipeg, who won the President's last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of the way they play Hellebuck, that's my only concern. So, all right, man.
Dallas, Jason Robertson, a 40-goal, 40-assist player at left winger. Rantanen, a 100-point player at right winger. Rupe Hintz is your top line center. Wyatt Johnson's going to be the second line center, and they're going to move Matt Duchene to left wing, and Tyler Seguin's going to play right wing. Sam Steele's going to be promoted from 4th line to 3rd line. He's going to be playing with Maverick Bourque, a young winger, and he's going to be playing with Jamie Benn on the 3rd line.
Oh, yeah.
Oscar back, Radek Fox, a former Blue, rejoins the Dallas Stars, and he was on the Stars when they made the conference finals in 2023 and 2024. Oscar back, 4th line left winger, and Colin Blackwell, 4th line right winger. Really strong forward group. The 2 Finnish defensemen, Miro Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen is just a complete defenseman. He does everything well. He might not have a Norris trophy on his resume yet, but he does everything at a high level.
You said the keyword yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said the keyword yet.
That's true. Harley's a really good offensive defenseman. Essa Lindell led the Dallas Stars in hit/blocked shots. Essa Lindell led the Stars with 170 blocked shots. Leon Bixel led the Stars in hits as a rookie. So those 4 guys that Dallas drafted are all really good. Lyubushkin, who they got in free agency, and Nils Lundqvist, those are the question marks on this defense. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas traded Lyubushkin and a second-round pick to Calgary to get Rasmus Andersson. That would not surprise me. And Calgary's a team we'll get to next week. And then Nils Lundqvist is probably their number 6 defenseman. And Dallas they've got Ottinger, they got Casey DeSmith, they've got 2 really good goalies. And they got Glenn Golitzin, the Edmonton Oilers power play coach, their new head coach, and he's talking about playing with physicality. And Peter DeBoer is a great coach. But the way he handled the Ottinger situation was wrong. And the other thing is, a lot of the teams coached by DeBoer, not just Dallas, but New Jersey, a lot of the teams DeBoer's coached, they don't play with the physicality that a Stanley Cup champion is required to play.
I agree.
I mean, Vegas did not play with as much physicality until they won the Cup in 2023. And you can make the argument their expansion team played with more physicality under their first coach before DeBoer took over.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that for sure, because it is clearly that in order to win a Stanley Cup, you need to be you got to follow that. You got to follow that. How do I want to say this? Almost like the Tampa Bay kind of model, right? Because Tampa Bay put it together where they had some of the biggest guys on the blue line back there, backstopping, and physicality and putting it together like that. And then Colorado went out and did the same thing when they won their cup, right? And Florida, look at what Florida is doing now. 2 times in a row they won their cup. And them guys lead games in hits. Them guys lead games in block shots. You know what I'm saying, right? That's the way you need to win a Stanley Cup. Physicality.
Exactly.
Physicality. You gotta have it. You gotta be able to take it.
That is the way that the game is meant to be played. You know,
hockey,
physical,
football,
you know,
physicality.
and
I agree, William. I agree.
Yep.
That is exactly the way.
100%, man.
When you go into the boards, you need to finish your check to take the man off the puck, so that your support guy behind you is able to take that puck. Okay, you need to have that physicality, and you see it. And every single Stanley Cup winner since Tampa Bay did it 3 times in a row. Every team since then. I mean, you can go back and look at old teams, and most of those teams were all physical teams too. You know, the key phrase.
And the Dallas Stars, the one category they did finish at the bottom at last year was hits. I think they were 30th in hits out of 32 teams.
But
during
that
the
was
regular season.
product,
and they still made the conference finals because they were such a deep team on paper.
But that was a product of, like you said, DeBoer coaching, right? That lack of physical game. You need to have that physical game. I think with them, with the second stint here of Glenn coming back as their coach, they're going to be a much more physical team this coming season. With healthy Robertson, re-signed Ben, everybody else that's on this team, as far as the guys that they have, I see them making another run.
I do too.
I don't think their window is closed yet.
They've got $27 million for next season in 2026. So if they're able to, they're able to extend both Robertson and Harley without going over the cap, they could have anywhere from $2 to $5 million to spend. And if they're able to bring back all their UFAs, and Edmonton loses McDavid and Florida loses Bobrovsky, Dallas is the team to beat. That's why I picked Dallas to win the 2027 Stanley Cup.
Oh, wow.
I have them falling short this year, either losing to Edmonton in the conference finals or to Florida. But I think next year, if they bring everyone back, if they run this lineup back, or they get a really good free agent, I think Dallas would be the team to beat next season in a year.
I almost don't even disagree with that.
Because if Florida loses Bobrovsky, that essentially closes their window. Even if they get a good goalie, I think the furthest they could get without Bobrovsky is the Eastern Conference Finals. And Edmonton, even if they pay McDavid $20 million a year, they're going to lose everyone else in the bottom six.
I
So
see the window for Edmonton closed. I with this being a contract year for McDavid, and it's still so up in the air right now, even at this point, we're September 13th, right? Rookie camps are now starting for teams, right? They're starting to play rookie camp games and stuff like that, right? Training camps just around the corner. Puck drop is less than a month away, and we still don't have a McDavid.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But McDavid's agent McDavid basically, an insider basically said if McDavid hits the open market, he's only looking at signing a contract with 5 teams: Edmonton, the New York Rangers, the Chicago Blackhawks, the LA Kings, and the Dallas Stars. I don't see him going to the Rangers, because going to the Eastern Conference and having to get through the Panthers to make the cup would be that would be suicide in a sense. And I also think, Chicago, I don't see him going to Chicago, because what's going to happen is Chicago will have enough talent to be a playoff team if they added McDavid, but I don't know if they'd have enough pieces to make a cup run, because they'd have a ton of young guys in the lineup. So that's the thing. If McDavid leaves Edmonton, it's either going to be the LA Kings, where he's going to reunite with Ken Holland, the GM that drafted him, or he's going to go to Dallas and reunite with goalie and skating coach from his rookie year.
So I see it more with reuniting with Holland more than I do anything.
I agree. I think Holland is more likely.
Oh my gosh.
If McDavid ended up in Dallas and they kept this core, they would be like the Golden State Warriors when they had Durant. That's how good the Stars would be. They would be like the Golden State Warriors when they had Durant and Curry. And there'd just be no way to stop them.
That would almost be akin. I'm going to go there. I'm absolutely going to go there. If McDavid goes to the Kings, that is almost akin to Gretzky.
Yeah, because Gretzky was on the Oilers and he got traded to the Kings.
And went to the Kings, money. Right? I mean, what? That just writes history right there.
Yeah.
Because I think if McDavid keeps playing, I think he could potentially be the one to beat Ovechkin.
Yeah, I think there's 2 guys that could catch Ovechkin in 5 to 10 years. McDavid is one of them. Austin Matthews is the other. I don't see anybody else catching. I don't see anybody else catching Ovechkin in terms of points.
No, but McDavid, I do see that, or Matthews. More McDavid than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I have Dallas still making the conference finals, but I have them losing the conference finals. But here's the thing. If somebody knocks out Edmonton, I think there's only 2 teams in the league that can beat Dallas in a 7-game series: Florida and Edmonton. If Dallas can avoid playing either of those teams this year, they will win the cup, because they're going to get one at some point. I mean, look at all the talent they have. They've got a 100-point right winger for 8 more years. They've got a 40-goal, 40-assist left winger. They've got Wyatt Johnston, one of the 3 best centers under the age of 22 in the NHL, along with Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini, 2 number 1 picks. And they got Wyatt at 23 in the 2021 NHL draft. They got the best player in that draft at pick 23. Heiskanen's at defender who does everything well. Harley's an offensive defenseman. Leon Bixel led the team in hits. Lindell led the team in block shots with 170. So just looking at Dallas on paper, they have a very complete team. I mean, there's 5 goalies. 5 goalies in the top 5, you could argue. Bobrovsky, you could argue Shesterkin, you could argue Vasilevsky, you could argue Hellebuyck. Jake Ottinger's the youngest of those 5, and Joey thinks he's the best of those 5, and Ottinger's only 26. He's not going to be 27 until December. So for anyone saying Dallas's window is going to close, I don't think their window is going to close unless they do something really dumb, like trading Harley or Robertson away. And I'm just glad Jim Nill is running the Dallas Stars instead of Jerry Jones or Nico Harrison. So,
boy, that was a horrible trade. I can't believe they got hardly anything. By the way, shout out to Micah Parsons, a hometown boy for me. Right, he played at Harrisburg, which is just right up the street from where I live. Right, so I got to watch this kid play high school ball. Then I got to watch him play Penn State ball because I'm a big Penn State guy. You know what I mean? So that instantly vaulted Green Bay. And
And
so,
you know, the Stars, they've got a great power play coach that they promoted from the AHL, Neil Graham, with his Grizzly Adams beard. He kind of reminds me of Sean McVay as far as hockey coaches go. I know that's a weird comparison, but he does remind me of McVay with that. Even Joey praised the beard of Neil Graham. But I think Dallas, if the coaches come together, former Oilers skating coach, former Oilers power play coach, if they come together and this Dallas team plays with physicality, I think they can win the Western Conference. I have them in the conference finals for a third year in a row, and I have them beating the Red Wings in the 2027 Stanley Cup next season in my early 2027 NHL mock. But yeah, I think they've got a great 2-year outlook, but they got to get one this year or next year. They got to get one before that cup window closes, because it feels like they're closer to the end of the window than the beginning. I don't think the window's shut yet. Earliest I see the window shutting is 2029, and that's if Miro leaves, or it could shut this year if they lose Harley or Robertson. But I don't think they will. With $27 million, you've got enough money to pay both guys.
Yeah, and they signed Ben to a 1-year contract as well too. You know what I mean? So they're definitely putting the eggs in the basket for this year. You know
I think
what I mean?
this year or next year. I think they've got a 2-year window still, but it's like after that, if they don't get it by 2027, then I'd be concerned about us becoming another.
My only thing in the West is Vegas.
Really? I've got Vegas missing the playoffs. I'm going to tell you why next week, though, because
that segue. Come on.
Yeah, Connor McDavid blocked my Stars from a Stanley Cup 2 years in a row, and he's going to block us from the quarterback rankings next week, because we are going to start the draft rankings, our yearly draft rankings. We are going to start those next week. I already sent William the top 20 this morning, the rough draft of it. So
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're excited to talk about that, Joey. So it's like, yeah, quarterback rankings are going to be next Saturday, but you know, Connor McDavid, he blocked my Stars from 2 Stanley Cups. Now he's going to block the quarterback rankings when we have our Pacific Division preview next Saturday at 10 a.m. same time. But I've got Dallas at 1, Colorado at 2, Minnesota at 3. St. Louis is my wild card 1, Winnipeg my wild card 2, and then Utah, Chicago are my first 3 out. And do you have 2 wild cards from this division, Ron, or do you think you're going to see one from the Pacific and one from the Central?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think you might see a little bit more from the Pacific than you are going to see from the Central. I think the 2 or the 3 teams you're going to potentially 4 teams you might see out of this are going to be Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, and either St. Louis and or Minnesota and or, you know what I mean, Utah. Pick one of those 3, right? Yeah. So I only think you're only going to see 4 teams potentially coming from the Central.
Yeah, I think we're only going to see 3 teams from the Pacific, but you'll have to wait next week for that, because that is our NHL preview. William, Joey, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to add to our NHL preview before we get into week 2?
I guess not. Sir. Yep. I'm sitting here listening to you, enjoying every minute of it, man. Awesome. Good stuff.
I got the Caleb Downs film cut done for this morning, and Ian film cut, because outside of Gavin McKenna, number 1 pick in the 26 NHL draft, and Ransford Guillen, who's probably going to go number 1 in the MLS draft, because he was the Gatorade National High School Freshman of the Year as a junior and a senior, won ACC Freshman of the Year at Clemson, and he had 2 goals and an assist against Pittsburgh, who had the best defense in college soccer. So. And he did that as a sophomore. So Ransford Guillen's probably going to go number 1 in the MLS draft. Some people called him the Ghana's version of Lionel Messi. So Guillen's tape has just been that good in year 2, to where people, the Devin Kerr, Dallin Cuff, they are hyping him up the way the media hyped up Caleb Williams. That's how much hype Guillen's getting. It's only September. I texted Victor from Top Drawer Soccer, who works under Travis Clark. is Gian locked in at 1, and he pretty much agreed. He mentioned 2 players on Virginia and Grand Canyon that could be challengers to Gian, but we're both in agreement that Gian's the guy to beat at this point. And he's had a goal or assist in all 5 games, and he played Indiana, South Carolina, Pitt, Alabama, Birmingham. Clemson did lose to Virginia Commonwealth, but Virginia Commonwealth is great in soccer and basketball. Like, those are their 2 best sports.
All right, gentlemen. I got to tell you.
Thanks for coming on, Ron. I know you got stuff to do.
Yep.
And I got my brother is taking me to the Steelers game against the Browns in week 6. I know Joey wants to get into the Browns conversation, which we're gonna in a few minutes. But yeah, it's like I know you're excited about the Steelers home opener at Acrisure tomorrow. So
yep, for sure. And like I said, man, puck drop is less than a month away. Okay, from the NHL season, the rookie camps are already starting. By the way, thank you, Chris, for having me on, man. Really appreciate that. You guys need to hop on over to Draft Utopia, get signed up, get subscribed. Make sure you're following this guy, man, because if you want all the latest and greatest on what's going on in all drafts, NHL, NFL, MLS, MLB, NBA, you got to come to
you name it, we have it.
Draft Utopia,
junior hockey
man.
drafts, like I'll do junior hockey drafts too, and USHL.
That's right. See, there you go. You got to get on over there, draftutopia.com. Check them out.
Because that's the only way to familiarize yourself with the next year of incoming prospects is to study those draft classes a year in advance, 2 years in advance.
Listen to the man.
You know the guys.
Listen to the man. Also, hop on over to Beyond the Bleachers.
RNJ Media.
Right? Is it Beyond the Bleachers, right?
Under the Bleachers.
Oh, Under the Bleachers. Oh, okay.
Under the Bleachers.
Okay, got to hop on over to that,
yeah,
right?
William's got a Facebook group for Under the Bleachers called Under the Bleachers, and yeah, he does have a show called Under the Bleachers that airs Wednesdays.
Yep, great show over there, man. Those guys talk about all things sports, anything you want to talk about as far as college football, regular football, you name it. Hop on over there and get subbed up for Under the Bleachers on Facebook. Get ready to follow William and follow Chris. Also, hop on over to rnjmediasports.com. The new website will be up here, we're hoping in the next couple weeks. We're getting some final things put together for the website. We started creating new channels for all the shows and everything like that. So stay tuned to rnjmedia.com sports. Check us out, man. We'll be coming on with all kinds of great stuff here real soon. So thank you all very much for having me, and we'll catch you all on the next one.
Thanks for joining us, Ron. We appreciate it,
buddy. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Yep. So, I mean,
all right.
We got a lot of stuff to talk. A lot of football-related topics, and I don't know what's going on here.
Oh man, it's all over, man.
Is my Wi-Fi
football
laggy?
Season's in full swing, man.
Sorry, it's just no, Wi-Fi's not laggy. Everything's good. Joey's still here. All right, we're ready to talk football. We'll dive into the first week 2 game, and yes, it is Browns Ravens, Joey, but I am parched. Like my throat, it's not swollen or sore or anything, but it's so parched that I'm going to die if I do not make myself something to drink. So open floor, you guys will fully get back, and then we'll dive into Ravens Browns. If you want to recap Packers Commanders game on Thursday night, that'd be fantastic. I have a bland game. The very one side.
Yeah. Well, Washington is definitely showing that sophomore slump that they have going, and after last night and versus Green Bay, man, Jaden Daniels, he has a little bit of work to do. Besides that, man, can't wait for this weekend
against the Giants. Connerly really struggled in week 2, the rookie right tackle out of Oregon. I mean, his performance was so bad that people were saying, well, Commanders should have drafted a receiver or running back in the first round instead of an offensive lineman. That's how bad it was on X.
Yeah, but Washington, they they never really get very good receivers. Their last first round one was Jahan Dotson, and he's now with the Eagles, but they have to do something to keep Jaden
that
Daniels
decision
going.
to trade Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers, that does not look good for Adam Peters.
Yeah, that is definitely something. Like I said, I've been saying all summer that Isaac Guerrero, he doesn't run as big or as fast as he is on paper, and so it wasn't that shocking. And then Jordan James had a hand injury, I believe it was, but he's definitely a hard runner, and kind of want to see what Robinson's gonna do, but that's just a 1 year rental.
Yeah.
I mean, contracts up at the end of the year, and typical San Francisco, they're not going to bring back. It's like when Chase Young spent a year there, and just a 1 year rental to keep things going. But now Brock Purdy is out, and they've got Mac Jones starting. That's going to be interesting, especially versus Saints and what they have going on down there with Spencer Rattler.
I agree. Spencer Rattler
Oh man,
versus Mac Jones. I'm pulling up the predictions for week 2. I'm pulling up the game write-ups.
And he
don't worry there.
It's definitely going to be what do you want to call interesting. They I don't know what San Francisco's got going on, but they need to get their crap straight.
I agree.
And before that the Super Bowl window closes on.
I feel like the window has closed. They still have a playoff window. I don't know if they've got a complete team on paper, but yeah, Commanders, Packers. I think William and Tracy took the Commanders. Everyone else took the Packers. But yep, just looking at the this is the most competitive we've ever been in the history of draft.
Oh, definitely.
Tracy and William were 9 night games. So the fact that you're only 2 games back of 7 to 9 people, that should show you how competitive it's been so far this season. And nobody's really pulled away. This is how it was last year. It was West, Kerm, and Bantle were all tied for the lead, but none of them were pulling away yet. So basically this last year, but we'll get to Browns Ravens. Right now, we are outside of the top 15 nationally. Associated Press has the number 1 picker in the country, Joe Reedy, and then CBS, who we finished ahead of for the last 5 years, has the number 2 and 3 record. But yeah, that's good for CBS. They got to get out of the funk they're in terms of NFL predictions, to where I think Matt Bowen was the only person that finished ahead of Kerr. Matt Bowen and Emmy Bettinel, I believe. But yeah, let's focus on Browns Ravens. Flowers is starting QB. Juwan Jones gave up 7 pressures against the Bengals. That's the most of any tackle in the league. He didn't give up any sacks, and Hendrickson did get a sack, but I think he beat somebody else besides Juwan to get the sack. It may have been the backup who came in for Conklin, but either way, that 7 pressures by Juwan Jones, that's not good. This is why I have the right tackle. But Tillman and Judy, Jabari Thrash, they do have some weapons. Isaiah Bond, Carter's their number 5. Njoku and Fannin. Jerome Ford's their number 1 running back. Sampson. I don't think they have a number 1 quarterback, a number 1 left tackle, or a number 1 running back. That's the big flaw with the Browns, William, and that's why I can't pick them to win a lot of these games on paper, And the Ravens, to be fair, someone besides Joey almost did pick the Browns to win. It was Kerm. He was considering the Browns, but he ultimately went with the Ravens. So,
yeah, their quarterback situation has me
it's hard for
edge,
me to pick against the Browns because of some of the holes they've got, and I do think their defense is good, but I think they should have kept Dalvin Tomlinson. They should have drafted Mason Graham, and they should have kept Dalvin Tomlinson. I think Malik Collins is a downgrade over Dalvin Tomlinson. So
yeah,
they're still going to have
Malik
those
Collins
issues.
isn't. He's just a regular, run of the mill. He's nothing special.
I was going to say Jag, just another guy.
Yeah, just another guy. You can use a whole bunch of those sayings there, I mean, but yeah, definitely just another guy. Mason Graham would have been really interesting there. I really liked him coming out.
Yep, and
the kid can play some ball.
I mean, Jack Conklin's injured though. Michael Hall Jr. was injured in week 1, but everyone else was active. Ward, I think, can shut down one of the Ravens receivers, but Newsome at the number 2 cornerback spot, Mitchell at number. Those guys are at a clear disadvantage. Andre Smith's the kicker. I basically thought that was a massive downgrade over I thought that was a massive downgrade over Dustin Hopkins. And I've got a prediction, William. Jake Moody end up on the Browns.
I believe it.
Jake Moody's going to be Brown,
exactly
Joey.
I'm
telling you. Jake
chance.
Moody, because there's nobody else in the pickup to replace Smizit. I think Moody's going to be a Brown.
I would love that. But here's the thing. I've been listening, but I know you guys have been talking about other things, and you guys are more expert on other things, so I let you guys go.
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt. But the bottom line is, Schmidt or Hopkins? I know, Chris, you said Hopkins would have won that game. Hopkins would have missed the same damn kicks. He was that bad.
I think he would have missed the field goals, but not the extra points. And if he makes the extra point, the game goes to overtime. Who knows what happens in that scenario?
And also, if Harry Judy didn't miss that 4th down.
Well, both of the Bengals' interceptions were
into the hands of the other team. Hey, guess what? The Browns are within the 20.
Both of the teams, both of the Bengals' interceptions were a byproduct of drops by the Browns receivers. That's all I was going to point out, Joey.
That's something you will never, ever hear again when it comes to Joe Flacco. He was not responsible for the interceptions. That is the only time you'll ever hear it. So please categorize it in your memory because you'll never hear it again. But the fact is, Jake Moody is better than either of those guys. So
and I'm not even sure why the Niners cut him. They brought in Eddie Pinheiro, but I think Pinheiro is actually a downgrade over Moody. So
yeah, that's kind of weird.
That's why I think Moody's going to end up on the Browns because I think the Bears picked up Moody. They added him to the practice squad, which I don't understand. He's better than Cairo Santos too. The Bears did sign Jake Moody. I figured the Browns would get Moody, but the Bears have signed him, but he's on the practice squad. So
if he stays in the practice squad, anybody can sign him. That's, so that may be an oversight by the Bears. But the bottom line is like you can't. Touchdown by and that's because of the strategy that the Wolves for this week. And it's all coach speed, so who knows it's not going to be strange. But I came in the middle of your guys' discussion, so please continue.
I agree with your dog, William. Isaiah Bond is not going to score a touchdown. That's what your dog was barking during Joey's Isaiah Bond rant.
Yes, sir.
To be fair, the dog is roasting Joey, and it's like you know, this is a little humorous, not totally, but yeah, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Ravens have the deepest offense in the entire league. Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Falele, Rosa, Gardner, the starters, but Carson Vincent, 5th round pick out of Alabama, Bama A&M is your backup to Stanley. Ben Cleveland's your backup left guard to Voorhees. Corey Bullock is your backup center. Emory Jones Jr., the LSU right tackle's the backup right guard to Falele, and Joseph Noteboom, who is a left tackle and a right tackle on the Rams, is the backup right tackle to Rosengarten. So you've got Cooper Rush as the backup to Lamar Jackson. Teelan Wallace, LeJontay Wester, and Devontae Walker are the backups to Flowers, Bateman, and Hopkins. Mark Andrews, Likely, and Kolar are the 3 tight ends. And then you have Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and Rasheen Ali as your running backs. I think the Ravens could win 10 or 11 games like the Patriots did with Matt Castle. How deep the Ravens are offensively.
From a coaching standpoint, I think we just missed something that is really important. And that is Lamar Jackson feasts. I mean, he has Thanksgiving dinner on these guys that do not keep gap integrity. He had 900-some yards last year on guys who were out of position. And tell me, which Olympic athlete's going to catch him when he gets through that hole? You know, that's just the thing. You know, if you let him go and let him do his thing, he is an elite, not only quarterback, he's an elite athlete in any sport. But the thing the Browns did well last week, after the first few drives, was gap integrity. So if the Browns can keep gap integrity, they can turn him from elite into a very good quarterback. I'm not going to say they're going to shut him down because that's absolutely stupid. But they can turn him into a very good quarterback, an elite quarterback.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that can give the Browns, because, like I said, the defense for the Bengals was set on eliminating the long pass. The Quinshon Judkins is going to be active. The Ravens are not going to do that. They're going to put another guy up there. So that's why I say Isaiah Bond has a shot, because he's a 4-3 guy. And you know Joe Flacco is itching at the chance to throw a deep. So there is a shot.
I agree. There is a shot. The Ravens have deep.
I'm not saying it's a good shot by any means of the imagination. But if the Browns play it right.
But the thing is, the Ravens have 4 deep at corner too. Even though the Browns are 4 deep at receiver, the Ravens are 4 deep at corner too. Nate Wiggins, Jair Alexander, Marlon Humphrey, and their number 4 corner is Awuzie.
Here's the thing about Jair Alexander. I watched last week's game. Jair Alexander is booked. I love Jair Alexander. I love it. I'm never going to say anything bad about him. But Father Time is undefeated. Okay.
I feel like he's a year or 2 away from Father Time. He just had a rough opening game, a rough first game with the Ravens.
That's possible.
But I think Jair Alexander and Marlon Humphrey both finished in the top 5 for most yards allowed by a corner back in week 1.
Because here's the thing. The Ravens are one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. They're the number 1 rush defense. They're the number 1.
They were number 1 in run defense last year.
So it's like, and that's hands down. So how are the Ravens going to somebody who's like, this is my last year in the NFL, period. I'm gonna freaking swing it.
Nate Wiggins Nate Wiggins is a 4-3 corner. Nate Wiggins has 4-3 speed, so they can put him on bond. The other guys, Humphrey and Alexander, they have 4-4 speed. Coming out of college, they have 4-4 speed, but they're not 4-3 guys. So Wiggins.
If you look at the stats, Leonard Tillman was one of the top wide receivers in the NFL last week in beating his man. So, and he's going to be against Zaire Alexander. So, if he does that against Alexander is what I said, then that means the safety's going to have to come up. That means single coverage. Now, that's a completely different story.
Yeah, but Madubuike, Jones, and Washington are great on the defensive line. Owa and Van Noy are the edges. Roquan Smith and Trent Simpson at inside linebacker, probably the strength of this defense. And then Tavius Robinson and Mike Green are your edges for depth. You also have Ojabo and Adiz Isaac as your edges, as your third string edges. And then Teddy Buchanan, your 4th round pick for Cal, is your backup if anything happens to Simpson or Roquan.
I just think Zaire Alexander is the pick that everybody's going to look at. Because if he falters, then that means this is going to be a high-scoring game. If he does not falter, then this...
The over-under is 45. I have the over in this one. I have 34-14 Ravens. I think this is going to be ugly, but at the same token, it could also be 28-21 and the Browns cover the spread. That's...
Yeah, it can be... You're right. It can be either or. And I think two things. The gap integrity by the Browns defensive line and Zaire Alexander. Zaire Alexander, who is the most important linchpin, in my opinion, for either team. If he looks like he did last week, the Browns could very well pull the upset. If he looks like the Zaire Alexander that Chris,
I don't think the Ravens are going to lose 2 in a row, and I think the Ravens have the deepest offense in the entire league. At every position when healthy, they have the deepest offense in the league this year. That's why I say... That's why I can't see them losing this game. But they have been, historically speaking, the Ravens have had their trap games in week 2 each of the last 2 years. They had their trap game against the Raiders in Minshew last year, and then they had their trap game against the Colts in Minshew in week 3 2 years ago. So, historically speaking...
I just think Zaire Alexander is the linchpin for everything.
Jair, you keep saying Zaire, but Jair, it's like, yeah.
But, yeah.
And Delpit's going to be the linchpin for the Browns, especially after his comments about Derrick Henry. I'm not saying he can't do it. He very easily could, but it's like, you don't want to give Derrick Henry that fuel for the fire because he heard the comments. He didn't respond, but, you know, you don't want to give him that fuel to the fire. We had 6 locks this week. Ravens are one of them, and they are one of 3 survivor plays that I would recommend this week. The next game is the Jaguars and the Bengals. I took the Bengals. I think the biggest reason the Jags won last week is because the Panthers didn't have Ekwonu at left tackle, and they put Josh Nijman in at left tackle. Nijman actually did better than I expected. He kept Hines Allen in check, but he did give up a sack to DeJuan Smoot. And without Ekwonu, Bryce Young looked very lost, very dysfunctional. And ETN ran the ball well. But it's like, the Bengals have no injuries on offense or deep. The Bengals have a fully healthy roster outside of Lucas Patrick getting injured against the Browns. I think Risner is better than Lucas Patrick, so I think that injury is a blessing in disguise. I said the same thing last year when Trent Brown got injured and Mims came into the lineup. I think Mims is going to make people forget about Trent Brown, and I was right on that. I got a feeling I'm going to be right on this. So, you know, I think the Bengals, and the thing is, unless Travis Hunter plays as corner, the Jags are not going to win this game. Jerry Jones is not a good corner. He is a serviceable corner. He's a good dime corner, good backup for depth. I don't think he's a legit number 2 corner. I think the Jags, they have to play Hunter at corner next to Tyson Campbell, or they are going to lose this game because and the coaching staff for the Jags did say they're going to increase Hunter's reps in this game, but unless he is playing, I think you have to have Tyson Campbell on Chase and you have to have Hunter on Higgins if you're going to steal this game. That's the key. If you do that and you put Jordan Lewis on Iosivas, I think you can steal this game. But if you don't, I think the Bengals just have too many weapons and find a way to win. And their defense is fully healthy. Last year, the Bengals had a ton of injuries on defense. Jamar Stewart had an 89.9 PFF grade in week 1 at edge rusher next to Hendrickson. And they also have Osai starting next to Hendrickson and Slayton and BJ Hill. So I just think the depth for the Bengals is just Chris Jenkins Jr., McKinley Jackson. They got Howard Cross as well. Demetrius Knight got nominated for AFC Defensive Rookie of the Week next to Logan Wilson. Cam Taylor-Britt, their number 1 corners in a contract year. DJ Turner, 2 years left in his contract, but was a number 1 corner at Michigan. Daxton Hill, nickel. Josh Newton showed he could be a number 1 corner against Pittsburgh in Week 18. And Jordan Battle was I think Jordan Battle might be the weak point in the secondary, but he had an interception last week. And Geno Stone. So I think the Bengals have that complete team on paper. I know you're not as sold on the Bengals yet because they only had 7 yards and they won by the skin of their teeth due to you could argue the Browns lost that game more so than the Bengals won it. You're not the only person that took the Jags, Joey. Oren also took the Jags. Oren.
That is not even anything because the Browns dominated the Bengals last week from start to finish, and they lost due to their kicker and a couple of snafus. The Bengals aren't going to have that chance this week.
But I don't think
this week is going to be a fundamental shift. If the Bengals can't capitalize on basic mistakes, they come out and play like they did against the Browns, they're going to lose again. That's just bottom line. Because the Browns should have won that game 27-14 or 27-17, whatever it was. But they didn't. That means, point blank, if the Bengals come out and play the same way again this week, they're going to get boat raced. Okay, so the Bengals have got to come out prepared. Because they were not prepared last week.
I think they will be more prepared on their home turf, and I just don't trust Jerry and Jones. And I think the Bengals with 2 number 1 receivers, they're going to do enough to win. Most of the staff has the Bengals. You and Oren have the Jags, though. You and Oren both took the Jags. Everyone else took the Bengals. William, I know you took the Bengals. You want to comment on this game before we get to Giants-Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, I love these rivalry games. Well, actually, no, it's not. I was thinking crap.
And for everyone says this is not a rivalry game, that is false. The Jaguars and Bengals used to both be in the AFC Central Division before the NFL went to 32 teams. So this is technically a rivalry game.
I remember those days.
It's an ex-rivalry, if you want to put it that way. It's a former rivalry, but the Bengals and Jags were rivals in the AFC Central.
I want to see what they're doing with Travis Hunter because, like you said, they said that they're going to play him a little bit more on defense. And
if they play him over Jerry and Jones in this game, I think the Jags can steal it. But if they don't, I think the Bengals win because I don't see Jerry and Jones stopping Higgins. Like, Greg Newsome is good enough to blanket Higgins while Denzel Ward blankets Chase. Tyson Campbell's good enough to limit Chase, not blanket him, but limit him. And I think Hunter's good enough to limit Higgins. I don't think Jerry and Jones is good enough to limit Higgins. I mean, Jerry and Jones, last week he went up against Xavier Legette. T. Higgins is a much different animal than Xavier Legette, William. That's all I'm saying. Legette's not a bad player either. It's just
I definitely feel that though. Xavier Leggett, he can be something, but like I said, I mean,
the Jerry and Jones, he held Leggett to 3 receptions for 10 yards. That's very good. I don't think he's going to hold Higgins to that little yards. He might keep him out of the end zone, but he's not going to hold him to that few yards.
Yes, sir. That's for sure. It's definitely going to be interesting. I'll tell you that.
And it's the healthiest Bengals team since 2005.
Oh.
So far, they're the healthiest Bengals team since they've won the division with Carson Palmer. This is the healthiest Bengals team in the last 20 years. So,
yeah, and after the last few years, like with the Burrow injury and all that, I mean, finally getting things together, it's a good team, but they have to put everything together, like that. Just go out there and play ball.
We're getting to the next game, Giants Cowboys, and you're probably asking, why am I laughing? You remember the TV show Dallas with the theme song? I might do like a remix, a Dallas remix where we have the Dallas theme song and then we show Luka getting traded. We show Micah Parsons getting traded. And it is just fuckery after fuckery, bad trade after bad trade. And then you just hear the Dallas music in the background. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. I'm not that cruel. I mean, I want my Stars to break their cup drought. And if I do that, I feel like they won't. But, but yeah, the Giants, Cowboys, this is a brutal game. This is not a lock. I know Joey and I both took the Cowboys. The Giants don't have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Hudson's going to get the start again. He should be better. Hudson did struggle against Von Miller in week 1. He should be better in week 2 against the Cowboys. Cowboys do it. Malik name. Ron Bland is out for Dallas. So the slot receiver for the Giants should have a big game. Abdul Carter, I feel like he might get his first sack for his first week. It's kind of the karma because Micah Parsons is no longer state editor on Dallas. Now the Cowboys actually have to sure in their division. So it wouldn't surprise me if sack is the karma for trading away Micah Parsons, because karma for Dallas doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. I do love the tandem of Lamb and Pickens. I think the interior offensive line, with the addition of Tyler Booker, they do have some players. Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders. They got Fowler at edge rusher. Marshawn Nealand at right end. Bland's the nickel. Bland is injured. Revel's injured, and Kalen Carson's injured. So the Cowboys are going to have Diggs. They're going to have Elam. They're not going to have that nickel corner because Bland's been ruled out for this game. And Revel and Carson are both on IR. So they have 5 good corners when everyone's healthy. The problem is 3 of their 5 corners are injured. So Diggs, Kyer Elam, and that's it. So as long as you if they play 3 corners and you don't target Diggs or Elam, you target the other corner, you should be able to move the chains if you're the Giants. But you're going to have to mix it up, though. I do have the Cowboys winning. I think the Giants take this to overtime. And the Cowboys are not a lock. William took the Giants. Tony Mario and Oren, who were both 11-5 last week, took the Giants to upset the Cowboys.
Oh man!
Everyone else took Dallas, though.
I heard what's his name yesterday? The one that just got shot. He hated the Cowboys. he literally said, "Fuck the Cowboys" on the reel that I saw, and yeah, that was definitely a good one.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting though, because the Giants, got all those new players on You know, new quarterback, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart.
If the
I think they
Giants
could definitely
had
pull the upset.
Andrew Thomas coming back from an injury, I think they could win this game. The problem is they don't. And I think that is why the Cowboys get this win by the skin of their teeth, and they get to 1-1.
Yeah.
But I know you took the Giants. I know Warren took the Giants, and I know Tony took the Giants. So it's not like the Giants don't have a chance. 3 of our 9 people took the Giants. That should say something.
That's for sure.
The Bears do get Jalen back. Get Jalen Johnson back. Kyler Gordon's going to be out. You know, I think the Bears, I think they're going to cover the spread. I know the Lions are favored to win. Taylor Decker is questionable. Taylor Decker is questionable. Terrion Arnold missed week 1. He will be back in week 2, though. Lions are favored by 6.5. The over-under is 50.5, and most people are betting the under. I'm taking the over, but I think the Bears cover the spread. I'm picking the Lions to win, but if I were betting on this game, I would bet on Chicago to cover the spread. I think the Bears are going to cover the spread. Ben Johnson's going to want to prove he is equal to Dan Campbell, and you know, it's episode of Ted Lasso where Ted Lasso's assistant goes on to coach for a really good Premier League team and he beats Ted Lasso. That's basically, they showed that clip when previewing this game. Yeah. So maybe the Bears win in Detroit, but I don't think the Lions are going to start 0-2. The Lions have to win this game. I mean, the Bears' next 2 games are against the Raiders and the Cowboys. Whereas the Lions, they got to play the Ravens in week 3. So if the Lions lose this game, they're going into Baltimore in a must-win situation to avoid an 0-3 start. I think the urgency for the Lions to win this game is far greater, and it's why we all have the Lions winning.
Very much.
Here's bottom line. If the Lions don't win this game, they're going to get and made some missteps in the season. And could lead to against Cleveland. If what the outcome of the Cleveland Baltimore game is, Baltimore is going to come in there against Detroit saying, we going to whoop somebody's ass.
And it's a Monday night game, too. The Ravens are way better at night than they are during the day.
Yeah, but Detroit has to win this game because if Baltimore wins, they're going to say, we have to whoop somebody's ass, get back to the start of the head of the division. And if they lose, they're going to say, we're pissed off. So Detroit has to win this to stay in the race because they're pissed off whether they win or lose this week.
I still have the Lions as my 1 seed in the NFC, but they drop from 13-4 to 12-5 now. So they dropped from.
I think the Ravens, whether they win or lose, that's say you're really done.
Well, Detroit's home game for the Ravens. Get the Browns at home, and they get the Lions at home on Monday night.
Because if Baltimore wins, they're still going to say we have to win to get to.
Because right now, the Browns and Steelers, so you're playing catch-up. Even if you beat the Browns, you're still playing catch-up most likely, unless Bengals and Steelers both lose, which could happen, but
They're going to have to literally win this.
they're
They're going to be behind the 8 ball.
I think the Lions will win this, Joey, but I think the Bears are going to cover the spread. Next game is Patriots-Dolphins. It's kind of a bland game. But the Patriots, they do have Harold Landry. We're not going to have Keon White or have Christian Gonzalez. The Dolphins, though, they're not going to have Austin Jackson, the right tackle for Tua, his blind side. They're not going to have Darren Waller. They're not going to have any tight ends they can throw to. They're not going to have Benito Jones at nose tackle. So Jordan Phillips, the 5th-round pick out of Maryland, gets his first career start. Oh, and with Storm Duck injured, Jack Jones, former Patriot, becomes the number 1 corner for Miami, and Rasul Douglas is number 2, and Jason Marshall Jr. is the nickel. Dolphins winning, and I have the Dolphins winning by double digits against my Patriots, 28-16. I have the Dolphins. I think the loss of Christian Gonzalez is the reason the Dolphins win this. Joey took the Patriots, though, so everybody else took the Dolphins, and it's because the Dolphins, they got to play the Bills. The Patriots could start 0-2. They'd be in a funk, but I think they could get out of the hole. That Colts defense is a lot better than you think it is. That Colts defense is a lot better than you think it is, Joey.
This week, they got to be better than the dog crap they put on there. I mean, let's face it.
The Colts week. I thought the Colts were a deeper team on paper, even with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Everyone else. Daniel Jones made Papa Smurf look like a baby Smurf last week with how good he was in the huddle. And I don't like the fact that I'm disrespecting Papa Smurf, because Papa Smurf does not deserve to be disrespected by a quarterback with the skill set that Daniel Jones has.
Man.
But yeah, I know you.
Danny Dimes.
I like Drake May, and I love our lineup, but the Dolphins, though, I feel like the Dolphins are going to get more pressure, and I feel like Tua is going to get more touchdowns. With Christian Gonzalez out of the lineup, we can only put, even if Carlton Davis steps up as number 1 corner, we can only blanket one receiver. The other receiver is going to go off between Hill and Waddle. The other receiver is just going to go off. The Colts have amazing cornerback depth, Joey. Charvarius Ward, Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore Jr., Xavier Howard's their number 4 corner, and their number 5 corner is Mekhi Blackman from the Vikings, who Vikings should not have gave up on so soon. The Colts have amazing depth at corner. That's why they beat the Dolphins last week, because the Dolphins didn't have an answer for their depth at corner. They didn't. And right now, they did an article on, I think there's only 2 coaches that could be fired early in the season. Mike McDaniel and Brian Dable. I think everyone else is safe at least until week 10 or 11, William. But if McDaniel and Dable get off to bad starts, I could see one of those coaches getting axed in the first half of the season.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that, man. That can happen like none others. So.
Next game is 49ers and Saints, and even though it's Mac Jones versus Spencer Rattler, Ayuk is still on IR, Kittle is now on IR, and Brock Purdy is going to be out 2 to 5 weeks. So I am surprised the 49ers are a lock, even with Mac Jones filling in for Spencer Rattler. I'm surprised the Niners are a lock, personally. I do have the Niners winning. I do have the 49ers winning. 49ers are now -3.5, so that means they will cover the spread. Initially, I did have the Saints covering the spread for this game, but now that the spread's down to minus 3.5,
That wide receiver for the Saints, what's his name? Rashid Shaheed. Man, that guy is, for the Saints, man. He's got that Josh Downs kind of get off, man.
And they've got Brandon Cooks as well. They've got Cooks.
Yeah.
They've got, I think Renardo Green can shut down Chris Olave, but I think both Cooks and Shaheed can carve Upton Stout and DeAndre Lenore. That's what worries me if I'm a 49er fan. And this is going to come down to who makes the better decisions between Rattler and Mac Jones.
Yeah. And I really don't care for Mac Jones, but he might be a little bit serviceable, but I mean, I'm not sure why they he's I just don't have the
if Joey didn't change his week 1 prediction from the Cardinals to the Saints, we'd be tied at 10-6, but changing his prediction from the Cardinals to the Saints is why he ended up 9-7. I could offer Joey to change if he wanted to change his pick again after change his pick to the Saints for a second week in a row with the injuries to Ayuk, Kittle, and Purdy, but I think Joey's going to just stick with the Niners after last week's debacle on that end, and everyone's got the Niners winning despite Mac Jones filling in for Purdy.
Yeah.
And I initially had the Saints covering the spread because the spread was 6.5. I think that if you got the Saints at 6.5, that was a smart play. I do have the Saints taking San Francisco to overtime, but I have Mac Jones winning this game. So
I can definitely
I think we've gone through 3 locks so far. Ravens, Lions, and 49ers are 3 of our 6 locks for this week. And spoiler alert, our next game is Bills-Jets. That's the 4th lock. The Bills just look like such a complete team on paper. I know the Jets put up a great effort against Pittsburgh. I don't see the Jets beating the Bills. I think the Bills win by 2 touchdowns. I'm going 30-16 Bills. Yeah, and everybody's taking the Bills.
I think it's probably going to be a little bit more of a blowout than that,
There are some people that think the Jets could only lose by a touchdown, but I think it's going to be something like 30-16.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit more than that. I'm going to say about 38-17. Give them that little bit of a
Did you see the Josh Allen lookalike at?
No, I didn't.
There was a and the lookalike had like or cats or pet cat dogs. Brought them into the Allen lookalike. I don't know if Josh Allen went to the Yankees game last night. I wouldn't gag if that's what he did. But Allen's work ethic's better than that. He's too. I don't think that was him. I think it was a lookalike. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, Josh Allen too. He's scored more touchdowns than any quarterback ever. Like in his first.
I pulled up a great stat. Quarterbacks that had. What was it? I found an amazing analytics stat last night. I'll pull it up here before we get to Seahawks Steelers. I'll pull it up because I want to. It was QBs that excel at creating plays outside of structure. Josh Allen led the league in this category last year. Drake May was second. Lamar Jackson was third. And quarterbacks that excel at creating plays outside of the pocket. So quarterbacks that made plays outside of the pocket in 2024, Allen was number 1, Drake May was second, Lamar was third, Patrick Mahomes was 4th in that category last year. Jaden Daniels was 5th. Guess who was 6th, William? Bo Nix. Caleb Williams was 7th.
Bo Nix.
So,
Nice.
so four of the top 7 QBs that created plays outside of the pocket were rookies. Just saying.
Yeah, that ain't bad at all. Bo Nix is, he's going to do well in Denver. He's got a few weapons there with Marvin Mims and RJ Harvey, but RJ Harvey, I just don't like his, he's got slow acceleration.
Yeah, Harvey, we'll get to the Broncos game later. ESPN.
Oh, yeah. He just brought up Bo Nix, so I was like, yeah.
Fox.
No, but
yeah, because there's 2 games I want to watch: Oregon Northwestern and Clemson Georgia Tech. So if you hear me yelling Fox or ESPN, I'm using my Xfinity voice activated remote just to make sure I have the right games on. I do have the games muted, so you won't hear the games in the background. But draft tape, I do have to watch it. 8 games are down, 8 more to go. Seahawks and Steelers. Everybody took the Steelers except William. And to be fair, the Seahawks do have a chance in this one. I thought they were going to beat San Francisco last week, and they almost did until Bosa had the big fumble recovery. So, and I do think Seattle is a great defense on paper. DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu. Nwosu missed week 1. He should be back this week. Boy Mafe, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jerron Reed. They got Riley Mills out of Notre Dame. He's on IR, though. They got Hankins as the backup to Byron Murphy. He's also on IR. And Mike Martin's the backup to Leonard Williams. So I think not having that depth on the interior defensive line is the biggest reason the Niners were able to win in Seattle, because the Seahawks didn't have that depth on the interior line to if they had a guy like Hankins or a guy like Riley Mills healthy, I think they would have had enough depth to win this game. To be fair to Seattle, they kept McCaffrey to under 100 rushing yards, but they didn't keep him to under 100 total yards. And they didn't keep him out of the end zone. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But either way, that was their best performance against McCaffrey, and McCaffrey still had their number. So, and I basically said that, Josh Joby's an upgrade over Trey Brown, who replaced Michael Jackson in 2024. And Joby did have an interception against Purdy. So I was right on that. They got Witherspoon, Woolen. I think Witherspoon's out for Seattle this week. So if Witherspoon's out, Pittsburgh should win this. Broderick Jones was bad at left tackle against the Jets. They've got Suvalo back from an injury. Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Metcalf, Roman Wilson, Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith led the Steelers in targets among tight ends. They've got Darnell Washington. He was my number 2 tight end behind Mayer in 2023. Warren's the starting running back. Caleb John is the backup. I do like some of the players on the Steelers. Don't get me wrong. But I also think, I'm looking at Seattle and I'm saying, okay, Joey Porter Jr. is out at nickel for Pittsburgh, but Seattle's not going to have Devin Witherspoon. So I think both quarterbacks are going to attack the slot. Both guys are going to make great decisions, but Deshaun Elliott injured. The Steelers pick up Jabril Peppers from the Patriots. Chuck Clark, Killebrew, and Peppers. I don't know which one's going to start in relief of Elliott. And they've got Boswell at kicker. I do have the Steelers winning, but they barely cover the spread. Since most people are betting the over here, I like the under. I think this is a defensive game. I'm going Steelers 21, Seahawks 19. Everybody pick the Steelers except for William. You can make your case for Seattle. Then we'll give Joey some input, and then we'll get to the Rams-Jets game. Why do you think Seattle beats Pittsburgh? Because I think they have the talent to steal this game, but it's Steelers home opener. That crowd is electric. They get rowdy as hell. And, you know, I think with that crowd, it's just going to be tough. College game day is not the same without Corso. I hate to say it, but the headgear is why I watched College game day. The headgear. Nobody does the headgear on College game day now that Corso's retired, so there's no point in watching it.
Corso was a man among boys when it comes to pregame football shows. Okay, he's like the college equivalent of Terry Bradshaw. Man among boys, and when they're gone, they're gone. You know, you just gotta look at them and say, "Man, I loved them when they were there." So, I mean, we just gotta appreciate what they were.
And Pat McAfee is standing on the College game day table like one of the kids in South Park.
Well, Pat McAfee is a different beast. Okay, we put McAfee in a different category.
I mean, it's gotten so bad that Candace Parker had to restrain him. That's how bad. That's how out of control Pat McAfee is. The guest pickers had to restrain him.
They had to restrain him when he is in the WWE and he jumps up on a table there. McAfee's a different beast, but McAfee draws ratings, and quite frankly, McAfee's one of the smartest guys you'll ever find when it comes to sports. But that gets overshadowed by the fact that he is so enthusiastic about it that you look at him and say, "God, what's he doing this time?" But he is as intelligent and capable as anybody in the industry. So I have a feeling in time he's going to be looked at as the next Corso. He will be looked at as the next. The true successor will be Corso. But right now,
I don't think they're going to do headgear this season out of respect for Corso. Maybe they'll do it next year if they feel like they have the right person at the helm. But
I don't even think it was the headgear.
For me, it was the headgear. That was the entire reason I watched game day every week. Now that the headgear is no longer on, I have to watch Big Noon Kickoff.
I love the headgear, but what really made Corso stand out was his enthusiasm.
Yes.
He loved it so much, and I think Pat McAfee may be the true successor, but we're not going to see that until at least next year. So it's like, because Lee Corso was in week 1, so everybody's going to remember Lee Corso over everybody else, and rightfully so. Lee Corso is a legend.
Okay.
At the same time, we at this point, you got to look to the future because Lee's gone. As much as we hate to say it, he's gone.
Yeah. And there's some college football games about to start. Joey, you want to talk about why you picked the Steelers? And then William, you want to talk about why you picked the Seahawks?
Aaron Rodgers showed that he's got a few games left in him. Torn Achilles, he did it last year. Torn Achilles is still irrelevant because anybody who knows medical knows that when you have an Achilles tear and you get a repair, it shrinks the Achilles, which makes it more difficult to move. But at this point, he's still going. And that Achilles is still holding up.
Well,
there's gonna come a point he's gonna have to go off to the wayside. Right now,
it takes about 2 years to fully recover from Achilles, and last week was the 2 years since he got injured against the Bills. You get back to like 70-80%. By year 2, you're back to 70-80% of where you were before the Achilles. Maybe you don't fully recover, but
better than every quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a guy that was so good he could beat 70 or 80% of himself. It's still dominating.
Yeah.
That's how good he was. That's why I picked the Steelers. Because at this point, he is still the standard bearer for, you can say whatever you want about Patrick Mahomes. The standard bearer that refuses to give up the torch is still standing, despite all odds. And no matter what I think about him personally or professionally, he's still somehow standing. And as long as he's standing, the Steelers are, as because he is a Steeler now, the Steelers are going to be a contender.
If they beat the Patriots in week 3, they're probably going to be 4-0 after the game in London.
Absolutely. And I hate saying,
I do believe the Super Bowl winner is going to come from the AFC North this year. If the Bengals don't win the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be the Ravens. And if it's not the Ravens, it's going to be the Steelers. I think the Super Bowl champion is coming from the AFC North division. I'm going to stand by that.
I swear to shit, if you say the Super Bowl champion is going to come from the AFC North and the Browns somehow do it, I'm going to freaking take you and I am going to body slam your ass off the Jacksonville State Bridge.
It's not going to be the Browns, Joey. It's going to be the Bengals, the Steelers, or the Ravens. It's not going to be the Browns. I did say it.
Not the Browns.
Well, to be fair, the Clemson deserves to be body slammed off the Jacksonville Bridge for wearing these freaking ugly-ass purple uniforms. If they want to wear orange, fine. I hate Clemson in purple, okay? Clemson in purple just doesn't cut it for me. And Clemson's wearing purple against Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech's moving the chains. TJ Parker, their edge rusher, missed a tackle on Haynes King, and Haynes King has Georgia Tech to the Clemson 31-yard line. So, yes, Georgia Tech deserves to beat Clemson because they decided to wear frickin' purple.
Is that like the Seahawks wearing that chartreuse?
I think I'd rather watch the Browns win the Super Bowl than watch Clemson in purple. I think I would rather watch the Chris Rock, Chris Tucker, Will Smith exchange at the Academy Awards again than watch Clemson purple. I think I would rather watch Steve Urkel try to steal a movie gig from Will Smith than watch Clemson in purple.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you for that, Chris. I needed that laugh.
I didn't think the Urkel joke would be that funny, but I guess it works, so.
Well, all right, man.
You got the Seahawks. Tell us why, William, and then we'll get to Rams Titans. I promise. We're almost at the late games.
This game because they've just got better players at their skill positions. You know, they've got JSN. You know, they've got a package of plays for Jalen Milroe. You know, they've got Sam Darnold for whatever he's worth. Seattle is a tough team. They always have been. You know, but their skill positions are just better. And I think now that Aaron Rodgers is actually a little bit washed. You know, I see Sam Darnold as a player who's coming up. You know, he finally got out of Carolina and out of New York, and you know, those places where quarterbacks go to die. You know, and they just have like I said, I love their skill positions. Jalen Milroe, you know, putting him in there and letting him have that Taysom Hill role, you know, do his thing, you know, because anytime he sets foot on the field, he, you know, is the best athlete on the field. You know, he's a 4-3 guy. He just, and I don't think that the Steelers can handle that also well. You know, they're still getting back together with Seattle, and yeah, and Pittsburgh. I just don't see them. That, you know, they've got what, DK Metcalf and a couple other players. I don't like their running backs. You know, Caleb Johnson was a plain guy coming out of Iowa, and he's a serviceable running back, but he's a jack of all trades. You know, he doesn't have any elite traits, you know, that actually stand out. And Jaylen Warren, he never really took that role, even though he filled in for Najee Harris the last few years every time, you know. And I think Seattle's just going to be too much with what they have, and JSN, you know, playing in the slot and catching.
They got Cooper Kupp as well, and I think Torrey Horton was supposed to win the slot receiver job. So yeah, they do have weapons. Pittsburgh's got weapons too,
sir.
though.
Yes, sir. And like I said, I just like their skill positions just a bit more. You know, Zach Charbonnet is an excellent back. You know, Kenneth Walker, he's always hurt, but Charbonnet is, a couple years ago, was my running back one, you know, with Devon Achane and Bijan Robinson that year. You know, Charbonnet gets up there, and he is just one of those guys that can go out there and just pound the ball and absolutely just run it down freaking Pittsburgh's fucking throat, you know. And I mean, it's just going to be too much. And as much as I, you know, dislike Seattle, I am, you know, confident in my choice that I'm saying that they're going to win. You know, it's just going to be too much. And like I said, Aaron Rodgers, he's a little bit washed now. He's what, like, you know.
Yeah.
But
I admire the boldness, William. The reason I'm chuckling is because I just read a hilarious comment. Somebody basically said, the Ravens in purple are like Barney the dinosaur. The Clemson in purple is like the Grimace. Barney is awesome. The Grimace sucks. Just a very hysterical comment. I could not keep myself from laughing. I know Joey's slightly offended by the fact that this commenter disrespected the Grimace, and they're calling Barney and the Ravens both awesome in purple. I know you're a little offended by that. So sorry. And I know I'm at risk of getting roasted for reading that comment. I know I'm at risk of getting roasted, to be fair. I'm completely okay with that risk, because I think it's warranted. Yeah. All right, we'll get to Rams Titans. I don't want to
Rams and Titans.
I don't want my laughter to delay Rams Titans. That would not be a very nice thing to do to Cam Ward.
See Cam Ward yet this year.
Rams Titans. I'm gonna go with the Rams Titans. I'm gonna go with the Rams 27-20. Everybody on Draft Utopia took the Rams except for William. He took the Titans in the upset. And to be fair, I do think the Titans are going to get an upset simply because I have the Titans upsetting the Colts next week, but I think the Titans are either going to get an upset this week or next week because the NFL needs to give the Titans some sort of optimism, even if they're not going to be very good. They need to provide that fan base with some sort of optimism, and the Rams, they won, but they did not look great against the Texans. And I'm not sure what it was. But they didn't look great against the Texans. But once they got the lead on the Texans, they won. And everybody took the Rams except for William. I've got the Rams by a touchdown, though.
It's going to be an interesting game. And, you know, the Rams, the last few years, they've finally gotten to the point, you know, to where they're actually, you know, using their draft picks instead of trading them like back when they had Aaron Donald and everyone else, you know, and they just kept loading up, but they couldn't win, you know. And but the Rams, that's another one where Stafford, you know, is getting a little bit long in the tooth, and it's going to be interesting because I mean, Puka Nakua and you know, all the rest of those guys.
Yeah, it's just next game is Cardinals Panthers. Before I get to that, I just want to talk about Ransford Guillen, the number 1 pick in the MLS draft, briefly, because in the film cut I did, he broke up a fight between a Clemson and Pitt player, and Ransford Guillen is small. He's like 5'3", 141 pounds. He's kind of small, but he's fast, he's damn good, and he's dangerous with the soccer ball. You wish Bryce Young had that type of fire, and it's like, if Bryce Young broke up a fight between his offensive lineman and Calais Campbell, I don't think it would go as well for him as it did for Ransford Guillen in college soccer, William. I don't think it would go as well for Bryce Young if he tried that. It'd be entertaining as hell to watch, but I don't know if it would go well for him. I mean, if Ekwanu's back, he could do a lot better this week, but, you know, if Ekwanu's not in the lineup, I just don't see him beating Arizona. And, you know, I think right now the Cardinals are just a better team than Carolina. And without their left tackle, they just struggled. They need Ekwonu back in the lineup. If they don't have him back in the lineup, they're going to have problems. And I just think the Cardinals are a more complete team than Carolina. There's really not much else to say.
Nope, you said it all.
Yeah, the Cardinals are one of the beneficiaries of having a weaker strength of schedule. But Caleb Tiernan, the North tackle that I mocked the Browns, he's looked good. He already has 2 pancake blocks. One of those pancake blocks is against Mateo Ugalele, the Oregon edge rusher that some have going in the first round.
Well, if we're going off week 1, there are several teams in the NFL right now that would probably would have been winners if the schedule had been better.
Not just the schedule, but I think the injuries at left tackle.
That may be so.
The Giants don't have Andrew Thomas, and the Panthers lost Ikem Ekwonu. I think if Ekwonu had played, the Jags-Panthers game's a 1-score game. Jags still win, but it's a 1-score game instead of a 2-score game.
The schedule itself. If the schedule itself would have been more favorable to several teams, they would have won. If they ended up losing because they were playing elite teams.
Yeah.
And not every team is elite. So we're going to look at the next few weeks and say which teams.
Because right now, the Cardinals, 49ers, Saints, and Patriots had the 4 easiest strength of schedules this year. 49ers at 1, Saints at 2, Patriots at 3, and Cardinals at 4. Those were the teams with the easiest strength of schedules.
And that's the thing. We're going to have to look at those 4 teams against the 4 teams with the toughest strength of schedule and say, hey, what's the combined record?
And the Giants and Browns have the 2 toughest strength of schedules.
Yeah, so, but we're going to have to look at that. I would say, if you mentioned 4, I say the 4 toughest versus the 4 easiest. Let's look at it for what it is. At that point, we're going to have to look at the schedules for each team and say, hey, guess what? It's the 4 easiest versus the 4 best, and who has the best overall schedule between the top 4 and the bottom 4.
Lions and Bears are in the top 4. Lions are third behind the Browns and Giants. The Bears and Ravens are tied for 4th. You can pick which one of those teams we throw in that equation.
Then at that point, it's like, at that point, let's see how it goes, because these teams did not get easy. And if they impress in any way, you got to take a look and say, we got to evaluate that differently, because the 4 toughest schedules against the 4 easiest. That's just being objective.
I agree.
That's just being objective for.
And Northwestern gets the first down against Oregon. Caleb Tiernan with his 3rd pancake block on this drive. This is a running play, though. The other 2 pancake blocks he had were on passing plays. This is on a running play. So that's more of a pull block versus a pancake block. But still, he's showing his physicality early. This is very encouraging by Northwestern. But this is what happens when you have a first-round left tackle. You got a chance to win. And Northwestern calls a flea flicker. And the receiver overthrew the flea flicker. That was almost intercepted. That flea flicker was about as terrible of a... It was the worst flea flicker I've seen since Tom Brady dropped the reception in Super Bowl 52. That was the worst flea flicker I saw since then. And this flea flicker didn't even reach the end zone. But, yeah. Everybody took the Cardinals. We're not going to say anything else. Next game is Broncos-Colts. And this is my upset, ladies and gentlemen. Here is my upset of the week. The Indianapolis Colts and Daniel Jones improved their record to 2-0. They beat the Broncos 24-20. The cornerback depth of the Colts is the reason that Daniel Jones prevails over Bo Nix. And 24-20 Colts. I'm not the only person that took the Colts. Tony Mario also picked the Colts. Everybody else took the Broncos, though. I mean, that is going to be, this is going to be quite the game. But I think the Broncos' defense is better than last year. But I also think the Colts' depth on defense could limit Bo Nix from scoring. And I think the Colts have enough depth to outscore the Broncos, even though Broncos have a really good defense. The over-under is 44.5. Most people are betting the over. I like the under, barely, and the Colts win as underdogs. This is my upset. So, yeah, I know this is kind of a bland game. We'll get to Eagles-Chiefs. That's our game of the week. And Ohio State, Texas is on Rumble. So is Clemson, LSU. And so is Notre Dame, Miami, and Oklahoma, Michigan's also there. Mateer looked really good in the Oklahoma-Michigan tape I watched this morning. We'll talk more about Mateer in the QB rankings next week. Eagles-Chiefs, this comes down to whether Dickerson comes back or, well, Carter's not going to get suspended for this game. The suspension took place in the last game after he spit on Dak. And I think the Chiefs win. Not just because I like their Mahomes. All the rookie left tackles look good. Okay, Will Campbell looked good. 54 pass block attempts, only 2 pressures, 1 sack, 1 penalty. Membu kept TJ Watt in check. Kelvin Banks kept Josh Sweat in check. Josh Simmons kept Khalil Mack in check. All the left tackles from the 2025 draft look good in their debuts. And Mahomes looked like 2019, 2018 Mahomes with Simmons as his blind side. And the Chiefs had Josh Simmons at number 1 on their board all the way back in December, but they kept that in-house until this week. So the Chiefs got their number 1 player at 32 on their entire board. And I think they are going to rebound. They might not. The Eagles might win this game. But what's ironic is whenever Joey's picked the Eagles to win, the Chiefs end up winning. Both regular season and playoffs. And whenever Joey's picked the Chiefs to win, the Eagles end up winning. It's not intended to be throwing shade. It may come across that way, but that's not the intention here. But I do think that's ironic. Whenever majority of people pick the Chiefs to win this game, the Eagles end up winning. Whenever majority of people pick the Eagles to win, the Chiefs end up winning. So, I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. I think the Eagles can still win. If the Eagles can find a way to steal this game, they could be the 1 seed in the NFC again. But I think, Mahomes looked like he could be a 300-yard QB with Simmons. He looked like the Mahomes in his first 2 seasons. So that's why I say I'm going to take the Chiefs here. This is week 1. I have 3 in week 2. I have 1 overtime. I have Saints. I have 49ers beating Saints in overtime, and then I have the Chiefs beating the Eagles in overtime. 21. Chargers. But the Eagles receivers look very rusty. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have 2 games in a row. I think they got to play the on Sunday Night Football, but they got to play the Ravens in Kansas City. Greater urgency for the Chiefs to win this game versus Eagles. And that's my reason for picking the Chiefs. To be fair, 5 of our staff members took the Eagles. Orrin, Joey, Kerb, Tracy, and Wes took the Eagles. Tony, Mario, me, Wes, and Daniel Keyser took the Chiefs. That should tell you how close this is. And this is my game for week 2. It may be one of the least compelling games because we know what these teams can do, but, Ashton Gillott had QB pressure last week against the Chargers. You got Mike Donna. You got some talented players. Antonio Williams is out for Clemson, and Clemson's left tackle is also out for this game. So Cade Klubnik doesn't have his left tackle, doesn't have his number 1 wide receiver. He's on the road at Georgia Tech. How is he going to respond in that environment, William? That's a big thing with Klubnik. I mean, don't have your number 1 receiver, Antonio Williams. You don't have your left tackle. How are you going to respond in a tough road environment like Georgia Tech? Without those 2 playmakers at wide receiver and left tackle, this game's probably going to test his Klubnik's leadership, I would argue, more so than the LSU game, because the LSU game tested his ability under pressure, whereas this game is going to test his leadership because you don't have your number 1 receiver or your left tackle. That's going to test the quarterback's leadership more than anything else. And Klubnik with a completion of Bryant Wesco Jr., who's a 2027 first-round pick at wide receiver for Clemson. So, yeah. But, yeah, I just think that I think the Chiefs have just as much offensive talent as the Eagles, especially on the offensive line. And I think that is the reason why the Chiefs pull the upset. Because the Eagles' right outside linebacker is Jalix Hunt. If the Eagles had Jihad Campbell at edge rusher, I'd be scared. They have Jalix fucking Hunt. And I did not like Jalix Hunt coming out of Houston Christian. So I think Hunt is going to get manhandled. Now, that's not the only matchup on the offensive line. Jalen Carter should destroy Kingsley Suamadiya. Creed Humphrey goes up against Jordan Davis. Creed Humphrey beat Jordan Davis in Super Bowl 57, but Jordan Davis beat Creed Humphrey in Super Bowl 59. That's a push. That is a legitimate push. Trey Smith is going up against Moro Ajoma, who's replacing Milton Williams. Trey Smith has the advantage at right guard. Jawan Taylor's going up against Nolan Smith. Advantage Nolan Smith. So you got two Eagles players, Carter and Nolan Smith. You got two Chiefs linemen, Josh Simmons and Trey Smith, that are going to give Mahomes that clean pocket. And the X factor is going to be Jordan Davis versus Creed Humphrey. Humphrey won the one-on-one in Super Bowl 57. Jordan Davis won the one-on-one in Super Bowl 59. And that's the thing, Joey. Whoever wins that, if Creed Humphrey wins that one-on-one, Mahomes is going to have a clean pocket. He's going to be able to make the right decisions against Philly. If Davis wins that one-on-one, you're going to have three Bulldogs, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis on the Eagles breathing down Mahomes' neck the entire game, like the hounds that Mr. Burns sends to chase people out of Burns Manor. So we'll see what happens. Is Vic Fangio going to send the hounds to Mahomes? We'll find out. But if Mahomes gets that clean pocket, I think he can do enough to win this game for Kansas City. I think that's partially why you took the Chiefs. That and the fact that there's just a greater urgency for the Chiefs to win, William. Did William go? Does William have to go? Yeah, William. Let me check my phone. I think William had to go. But yeah, Joey, you want to say anything about this game or make a rebuttal for the Eagles winning? If you don't, we'll go to the next game. Because, yeah, once college football games are on and it's a good game, I do lose interest pretty quickly. Falcons-Vikings. Darrisaw is out this week at left tackle. Harrison Smith's out again. I do think the Vikings win. The resilience JJ McCarthy showed was very good. And the Vikings went the entire third quarter without a third down conversion, and they still beat the Bears because the Bears went the entire second half without a third down conversion. I like the Vikings by a touchdown, 28-21. I do think the thing
we may be dismissing, Michael Penix looked damn good.
He did look damn good. I mean, I think part of it was the Bucs injuries. The Buccaneers lost Zion McCollum to an injury. Benjamin Morrison was on the PUP list. And Jacob Parrish, the third-round pick, was filling in for an injured Morrison at nickel corner. So
that might be because Baker Mayfield looked damn good too.
But to be fair, Jamel Dean had 5 deflections against the Falcons last week. Jamel Dean had 5 deflections, but Zion McCollum was either getting torched or he was injured. And when he was injured, the Bucs were just getting absolutely torched.
Yeah, you may be right. It may just be the injuries. Because in last week's game, both quarterbacks looked damn good. So what happens this week?
Harrison Smith's still out for Minnesota, and I would probably target that free safety if Metellus is at strong safety and they don't have Harrison Smith back. And the Vikings do have a worse secondary than the Buccaneers. They have Byron Murphy, but outside of Byron Murphy, who do you have? Your Byron Murphy is your Isaiah Rodgers, Eagles backup corner last year's your number 2, and Okudah backup on the Texans is your nickel. So I think Penix can have some success against the Vikings, and I also think McCarthy can have some success against the Falcons. Falcons' number 2 corner is Mike Hughes. Their nickel corner is Billy Bowman, the safety out of Oklahoma, who beat out D. Alford for the nickel job. And the safeties are Harrison Smith. No, the safeties for Atlanta are Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts. And they're using Billy Bowman as a nickel corner. And Minnesota did this when they had Metellus, Cam Bynum, and Harrison Smith before Bynum signed with the Colts. So now that Bynum's on the Colts, now that Ward's on the Colts, Jalen Jones on the Colts, that's partially why I picked the Colts. But I think both these quarterbacks could get 300 yards. I do. I think both these quarterbacks have a shot at getting 300 yards. I know that sounds stupid, Joey, but I think Donovan Jackson didn't give up any quarterback hurries in week 1. Darrisaw was a full practice versus being a limited practice. I do not know if he cleared the injury report yet, but if he did, I feel a lot more confident. But everybody took the Vikings. Vikings are my survivor pick for week 2, and this is risky. This is a very risky play on my end because you look at the 3 home locks on Draft Utopia this week. Vikings over Falcons, Cardinals over Panthers, Ravens over Browns. If you were in my position, Joey, you would probably go with the Ravens or the Cardinals. The Vikings, I would argue, is the riskiest of those 3 for survivor. It should happen, but I would also argue it. But if the Vikings win, the 2 teams you pick to make the playoffs, the Cardinals and the Ravens, you have them for later in the season. That's the payoff.
Well, when it comes to Survivor, the best bet is to take the Ravens. But if you're looking at, say, the over-under, you're taking the Browns. So it really is.
You mean the point spread?
Looking at a slippery slope, right?
You mean the point spread, because the point spread's -11 for Baltimore.
Yeah, point spread. That's what I meant. Yeah, but you're looking at a slippery slope here. You know, it's like, which one do you want? And you're in a position to where
I'm taking the Vikings to win. Cardinals and Ravens are probably both safer plays in Survivor than the Vikings, but I'm playing the long game. I'm saying, well, if the Vikings win, I can save the Ravens for later when they play another weaker opponent as the season progresses. And that's the strategy behind my thought process, but it's risky. And if the Vikings lose to Atlanta, I'm eliminated. That's
because I laid it out. It's like, as how the Browns could win. And I didn't even mention points on Judkins, who is supposed to get in 12 touches this week, which who knows how that could turn out.
I picked I would rather save the Ravens for a later game in the year when they're a lock. I'd rather save the Ravens rather than use them now. I'd rather save them when they have a home game against the Pittsburgh or they have a home game against somebody else later in the year, maybe next week.
I'm just saying it's a tough pick for you.
It is a tough pick because if you want to save the Ravens for later, you have basically the Cardinals or the Vikings. And I'm going with the Vikings here, and that's risky. But I have the Cardinals and Ravens in the playoffs. I have the Vikings at 7-10. So that's the thought process with picking the Vikings. Just get them out of the way. If you have a team missing the playoffs and they're a lock, pick them.
When it comes to pick them, take the game that has least unknowns. And right now, Ravens and Browns have a lot of unknowns. So just
That's why I didn't pick them. And 50% of the people picked the Ravens in Survivor. And Clemson's kicker missed the field goal. So Georgia Tech remains ahead of Clemson because Clemson decided to wear purple to Georgia Tech. That's what you get when you wear purple, Dabo Swinney. Well, Dabo's wearing orange, but everyone else on Clemson's wearing purple. And some teams look great in purple. The Ravens and Vikings both look great in purple. I think there's a few teams. I think the Ravens and the Steelers are the 2 teams that look the best in black. I would put the Raiders up there at 3. I like the Saints better in gold versus black. I thought the Saints gold jerseys were awesome. If I owned the Saints, the gold jerseys would be the default home jerseys. We wouldn't even wear black. The gold would be our default. And the Eagles look great in green. I've never liked the Eagles black jerseys. I love the Ravens in black though. And I like Steelers and Raiders look good in black. Eagles, I like the Eagles in white or green, but that's just my opinion. But Georgia Tech, they get a first down after Clemson misses the field goal. They're already at midfield and Haynes King is driving. And Eric Rivers, the Florida International receiver that transferred to Georgia Tech, he's got to make a big play. He has got to make a big play today if Georgia Tech's going to win this game. But, Haynes King, he did it last year against Florida State and Ireland, so we'll see. But yeah, everybody took the Vikings. Next, it is Monday Night Football, Buccaneers, Texans. There's 2 Monday night games. I took the Texans. But these are the 2 most injury-riddled teams in the league, Joey. I mean, the Texans had 14 players on the injury report last week, and their starting center got injured in week 1. And the Buccaneers, they're depleted at corner. Morrison and McCollum are injured. They're depleted at wide receiver. McMillan's injured. Godwin's injured. They're depleted at tackle, too. Not only is Tristan Wirfs out at left tackle, Luke Godecki's out at right tackle, but what Luke didn't...
I've got to give Clemson a little credit. Height, the linebacker, that man.
Is that Eric Rivers, who just made the catch for Georgia Tech? Because I loved Eric. Yep, Eric Rivers just made the catch. Eric Rivers... I had Eric Rivers in the first round of my mock draft, Joey. He just carved Terrell on that play. 1st and goal for Georgia Tech.
I'm watching the Clemson game.
I'm watching Clemson game too. It's on ESPN.
Height has some talent. Number 13 from Clemson.
I like Sammy Brown more.
Upside.
Sammy Brown is going to be a first rounder in 2027, the other Clemson linebacker.
I'm just saying, despite a couple jerseys.
Clemson does have some talented football players, Joey. I think they have 3 first-round picks in my 2027 mock and 3 in my 26 mock. Yeah, even though I hate the purple jerseys, they do have some talented players. I'm not going to deny that.
They got some guys that are good rocking through there, but they're going to be overlooked by those purple jerseys. Those purple jerseys are horrendous.
Well, I got the Clemson tape from the game against LSU, but I have Clemson losing this game. I have them losing to South Carolina, but I have them winning the ACC over Georgia Tech in the ACC title game at 9-3. And they wear orange, and they avenge this abomination of a jersey. Because, yes, they have Sammy Brown at middle linebacker. They have Wade Woodaz at 17, Wade Woodaz. I'm looking for 13 on the Clemson. Will Height. Will Helt's a defensive end. This Helt, the player you mentioned, Joey, he's a defensive end. He's the left end next to TJ Parker. So Parker and Helt are the edge rushers. DeMonte Capehart's a senior, and Peter Woods is considered the top defensive tackle over Corleone in this year's draft on the defensive line. So they have a lot of talent, Clemson does. But Eric Rivers, that was a big play by Eric Rivers, and Eric Rivers is my wide receiver 3. I have Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson, Arizona State, is my top 2 receivers. Eric Rivers is my wide receiver 3, and nobody in the country was talking about Rivers besides me at the beginning of the year. Because I tried to get other shows to mention him, and they didn't. But yeah, Eric Rivers looks good. But back to Buccaneers-Texans. The Buccaneers have both tackles injured. They have every receiver outside of Mike Evans and Egbuka injured. They have 2 of their corners injured, but the Texans have 14 players injured. So I would argue these are the 2 most injury-riddled teams in the early part of the season, Buccaneers and Texans. I think part of the reason why you picked Tampa, Joey, is because Baker showed he could overcome the injuries. Stroud has not shown he could overcome 14 different players being injured. But the thing is, Tony Mario is a Buccaneers fan. He took the Texans. Tony Mario's favorite NFL team is the Buccaneers. He's even a season ticket holder at Raymond James Stadium. He picked the Texans to win this game. He is not confident in his Buccaneers. Kern picked the Texans. Tracy picked the Texans. Keiser picked the Texans. Yanish, William, Wes, William, Joey, and Orrin picked the Buccaneers. And it really, I think part of it is Baker showing the ability to overcome the injuries. And I think the other part of it is the Texans just look very sloppy in week 1. You're just not certain if they're going to recover from that in week 2. We did disagree on this Monday night game, but we agreed on the second Monday night game. You're not the only person who picked the Raiders to upset the Chargers. I did too. And Orrin did. And Tracy did. So, even though we had 5 people pick the Chargers, Tony Mario, Kerm, Wes William, and Daniel Keiser, We had 4 people out of 9 pick the Raiders, including myself and Joey. What does that say? We both have the Raiders as our upset, Monday night upset. So, I mean, and, the Chargers committed a lot of penalties against the Chiefs, and if they do that against the Raiders are going to steal this game, Joey. If they play, because the Raiders kept the Chiefs in last week's game in Brazil with all the penalties they committed. If the Chargers commit as many penalties as they did in Brazil, the Raiders are going to win. I know I sound like I'm taking crazy pills, Joey. I know. And you also picked the Raiders. But I just feel like, the Raiders, even though they got carved by Drake May, they did not commit the amount of penalties that the Chargers did. And if the Chargers commit a lot of penalties, the Raiders are going to steal this game. Because I feel like the Raiders have been one of the least penalized teams in the league so far, whereas the Chargers look like one of the most penalized teams in the league after 1 week. And that's one thing that could hurt the Chargers, Joey. So I am taking the Raiders. Look, I don't think the Raiders are a complete team on paper. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I am not going to pick against the Raiders when they're at home on Monday night. I'm just not. I think that's an advantage for them with their crowd. So give me the Raiders 24-21 over the Chargers.
That's a tough game. I went back and forth on that one. I don't think there's much of a difference. The biggest difference I see is the coaching. So we can take that as we want to take it. Best running game versus best coaching. And the Chargers had a hell of a game last week. Nobody's gonna say
Herbert was on fire last week.
Yeah.
Literally on fire last week. If it wasn't for Josh Allen's heroic Herculean comeback, he's the player of the week, and he probably wins the week 3 cover vote. But Allen's comeback was so Herculean that it put him over the top over Herbert for the poll question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only reason I voted for Allen was because this last 5 minutes for Allen was just absolute. So let's give credit where it is. And right now, this is a preseason game. I kind of flipped a coin on it. So, Chris?
You picked the Raiders when you texted me earlier in the week, but now you're flipping a coin on this.
Well, I was flipping a coin on it when I did it then. I just flipped more points. So, I think I'm going to stick with what I said before.
You picked the Raiders to win.
I think I'm going to stick.
I've got the Raiders winning too. We both have the Raiders pulling the upset on the Chargers. If you switch to the Chargers, you're going to end up being wrong, and Nicolas Cage, who is playing John Madden, Nicolas Cage is going to play John Madden in the new Madden movie. Nicolas Cage will haunt you in your dreams if you switch to the Chargers. The Raiders will win, and Nicolas Cage will haunt you in your dreams.
I'm just saying, it's kind of a coin flip.
It is. You're right. I only have the Raiders winning by a field goal, and the Chargers are only favored by a field goal.
We're all in. Both of us. We're all in on the same thought process. So, it's just, I just use a different terminology than you do. But we're all in on the same thought process.
And the crazy part is I had Clemson and Georgia Tech in my ACC championship at the start of the year, and I said this would be the game where Clemson plays like crap against the ACC. This would be the game where they and to be fair, Klubnik entered the year as my QB2 behind Nussmeier, but Aller Aller looked better than Klubnik after week 1. Klubnik struggled against Troy in the first half last week, and Lawrence Sellers made all 6 progressions against Virginia Tech, and he showed he could make a 7-step drop. So I think you could make an argument that Sellers has jumped him. Now, if Clemson loses this game, how far does Klubnik drop? Because I think right now, Sam Leavitt, who I had as my QB5 back in August, he laid an egg against Mississippi State, 10 for 24 for Arizona State. I think John Mateer and Carson Beck are jockeying for QB5. And the reason I say that is because I think we're going to see Nussmeier, Aller, Klubnik, and Sellers all go in the top 6 or 7 picks, top 8. We'll see all of those guys go in the top 10, and then the Steelers will be picking outside the top 10, and they'll have to decide, do we want to take Carson Beck or do we want to take John Mateer? And John Mateer is number 1 in Charlie Campbell's mock draft, and NFL scouts are comparing Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer to Baker Mayfield. I don't see it. I don't agree with it, but I can see why. Because Mateer was making some throws on the run that Mayfield makes. And the throwing motion's almost identical. Mateer's throwing motion's almost identical to Mayfield's. I don't think he has Mayfield's upside. But NFL scouts are saying John Mateer reminds him of Baker Mayfield. I don't see it, Joey. I think we're in agreement.
I don't either. It's the mentality. The mentality of Baker Mayfield is that a dog is gonna freaking gnaw you like a bug. I do not see that going into the other.
I think Mateer could sneak into round 1 as that 5th QB if he continues to play well, but I don't see the Baker, But the thing is, the Senior Bowl named John Mateer the Player of the Week.
Let's look at facts. Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick. If he's not the number 1 overall pick, where is the comparison going?
Well, he was number 1 in Charlie's mock, but I don't agree. But that's just what NFL scouts are saying to Charlie internally. They're saying, sources and scouts are basically saying, well, John Mateer reminds us of Baker Mayfield. That's what...
That means that if they believe that he is Baker Mayfield, in comparison, that means they believe that he is a number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
That is the stigma of being the number 1 overall pick and being compared to the number 1 overall pick. Whether you like it or not. If that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and that's why I would go with Mateer over Carson Beck, but it was a very tough decision because I think the Steelers, if Sellers, Klubnik, Aller, and Nussmeier are off the board, I think they're going to take a quarterback this year. It may be a guy who's a second-round prospect right now, but right now my options are Carson Beck, John Mateer. Of those two, I like Mateer more, and I think Mateer would be a good fit for Pittsburgh. He does remind me of Baker from a throwing motion and from his ability to throw on the run. He doesn't remind me of Baker in terms of upside or decision-making or competitive nature, but he does remind me of Baker from throwing on the run. That's the only similarity I see between the two.
Also, the velocity on the throw, Baker, to this day, is one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL that put velocity on his throws. He has elite velocity and accuracy.
Well, that's the thing with Mateer. His velocity and his ability to throw on the run is very good. You see flashes of Baker when you see him throw. You see flashes of Baker.
On the run, that's one thing. Velocity on the throws. And
in the pocket, it's something I got to see from Mateer.
That velocity.
But this is the thing.
Two things he does not have. And
This is the
that's what
thing.
made Baker the number 1 overall pick.
But here's the thing. John Mateer's pretty much locked into the Senior Bowl. The new Senior Bowl director that took over for Jim Nagy made John Mateer the Senior Bowl Player of the Week. And guess who's the Oklahoma athletic director? Jim Nagy. So John Mateer's pretty much confirmed to the Senior Bowl. He doesn't have his invite yet, but he's pretty much confirmed if the Senior Bowl's already named him Player of the Week after his game against Michigan.
But you can't sit there and say that he has elite zip and elite accuracy like Baker did in college, because that got him the #1 overall pick.
The other thing is Baker had 2 seasons where his completion percentage was above 70%. He had 2 seasons, not one. He had 2 seasons. He was the first quarterback since Andrew Luck to have a completion percentage of above 70%.
He still holds that record. So, I mean,
Well, now Mateer's got a 71.8. College Baker Mayfield at a 71.2 completion percentage. Mateer is a 71.8, but it's only through 2 games against Illinois State and Michigan. That number's going to come down as he plays more SEC teams. Baker not have to play SEC teams back in the day, which is why that and his skill set are why his completion percentage stayed at the 70%. Mateer's going to have to play SEC teams, so his completion percentage is going to drop in the coming weeks. That was an ad, Joey. I'm on ESPN. That was an ad. I was trying to get rid of it, buddy. I heard it. I was trying to get rid of it. I heard it. I heard it, buddy. I heard it. Yeah. That was more brutal than the Clemson purple uniforms, that ad on ESPN. I'd advise you to change it.
Wow. Who's coming up on that one? All right.
I mean, Haynes King had 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's the only reason I left him out of my QB rankings for next week, but he is dealing today. He is dealing today against Clemson. So maybe I need to tweak those rankings and put him in somewhere in the 7th round. Because we put 20 quarterbacks in the quarterback rankings for next week. This is the first draft since 2016 where I have 20 quarterbacks in my quarterback rankings. Usually it's 10 or 15, Joey. Usually it's an underwhelming class where there's 10 QBs, or usually it's a class where you've got 7 to 11 QBs with starter upside, and then you got 4 or 5 backups. That's usually what we get at the quarterback position. All quarterback classes are created unequally. They're all different, but I ended up with 20 quarterbacks, the most I've had for a draft since 2016. And that was really a trial and error year, because that was like our second draft together, one of your first drafts with the Evolution Network at the time. And I think only 4 quarterbacks from that draft are still in the league. The 3 we expected to be good, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, and Dak Prescott. And the 4th is Jacoby Brissett. Brissett was my QB 20. I had him as the lowest graded QB of the entire draft class. He's still in the league, even as a backup, and some would argue he's been better than Carson Wentz. So, I'm not going to go there. Joey might. So it is what it is. But those are the only 4 QBs from that draft 10 years ago that are still in the league. Paxton Lynch is out of the league. Cody Kessler's out of the league. Kevin Hogan's out of the league. Who else was in that draft? I mean, man, yeah. So I'll pull up the 2016 draft QBs. Yeah, because Hackenberg was drafted that year. Connor Cook was drafted. Jake Rudock, Brandon Allen, Jeff Driscoll, and Dowdy. Driscoll might still be in the league. I'm pretty sure everyone else is out of the league, though. So, and we had 20 quarterbacks in our rankings for that draft. So, my QB1 Goff, Joey's QB1 Prescott are still in the league. Carson Wentz is still in the league as a backup. He was my QB2, and I think he may have been Joey's QB2 at the time behind Prescott. And Jacoby Brissett's still in the league as a backup. We both disliked Paxton Lynch. We both thought Paxton Lynch was going to bust. And we were both, I don't know. Were we disgusted by Paxton Lynch's mustache? I'll leave that up to you. But, yeah, this is the first draft since 2016 where we have 20 quarterbacks in the pool. 20. I think we almost put 20 quarterbacks in the 2019 draft, but that was heading into July. Heading into July of 2018, we thought there'd be as many as 20 draftable quarterbacks, and then we realized how underwhelming the 2019 draft was going to be at quarterback. Because outside of Blaine Gabbert, Kyler Murray, and Daniel Jones, and Dwayne Haskins, it was a very underwhelming quarterback draft. And everybody else failed to impress us. Everybody else that we thought could be something failed to impress us, and Herbert went back to Oregon. So that's why you can never be too sure about a QB class. And 20 quarterbacks might be pushing the envelope, but there are a lot of good quarterbacks with high upside to develop into starters. There's as many as 20 in this draft. And do I think all 20 are going to get drafted? Of course not. I would say probably 10 to 15 of those guys get drafted, and the other 5 are ODFAs. But we do have 2 FCS quarterbacks in the rankings next week, too. So two FCS guys in the rankings next week for quarterbacks. And I might take one of those guys out and put Haynes King in if he keeps playing this well. So that's all I'm going to say on that end. I am going to end the show on TalkShoe. Do we got anything else we want to say before we sign off? Only 3 hours. Very respectable 3 hours. And we got through everything without overdoing it, I think. So, is there anything else we want to add before we sign off? We've gone through all the games. We've gone through all the predictions. Yeah, so I'm going to watch some college football. I'm wondering if Keelan Rutledge is related to Tate. Keelan Ratledge is related to Tate Ratledge. Yeah, I agree. We're good. So let's just have some fun and watch some college football. And that's Joseph Potter. I'm Chris Ransom. We'll be back next week with 2 streams. We'll have a 10 a.m. stream of the Pacific Division, and then we'll have an 11:30 stream with the quarterback rankings, and you'll get the week 3 predictions and the quarterback rankings in the 11:30 stream. And I'll take a look at the games next week before I get back to William. There's so many key pivotal games in the 12 p.m. hour, so I really don't blame William for splitting with all the good college games on right now. I mean, there's a lot of good games, so I appreciate William coming on. I appreciate Joey coming on, but I'm going to sign off on Restream because I've already signed off on TalkShoe. So we'll see you guys next Saturday for the Pacific Division with Connor McDavid, Vegas Golden Knights, Vancouver Canucks, San Jose Sharks, LA Kings, and we'll have our first quarterback rankings. And I might use we might do what Elite Prospects does. Elite Prospects, they basically ask people, who's your number 1 player? Who's this, and this? They have like a moderator, and then they get on a Zoom call, and they ask like the 9 or 10 people, who's your number 1 player? And then that's how they build their consensus big boards. Maybe we'll try that. Like, I've got a list typed up of my top 20, but if Joey or William can't name that many quarterbacks, maybe we start small and we try to build a consensus list on that. But yeah, we'll do that next week with the quarterback rankings after we get through the Pacific Division, and then week 3, of course. And right now, I've only got 1 game set up for week 3. That's the Thursday night game. It's gonna be hard for me to focus on that with all these good football games on. But that's Joseph Potter. I'm Chris Ransom. Enjoy your